Chapter 774. There were undulating mountains, green mountains, and oases. The thin mist was like dense water vapor, lingering between the peaks and above the pond. After leaving the Grand Canyon, Chu Hen successfully got rid of Xiangu and Bai Nian from the Heaven Imperial Dynasty and headed toward the outer region at his fastest speed. As he got further away from the place of extreme negative energy, the number of demon spirits that Chu Hen encountered became fewer and fewer. After confirming that there was no one chasing after him, Chu Hen's figure moved, and he flashed towards an especially precipitous precipice. After searching for a while, Chu Hen found a hidden cave on the side of the precipice. The dark cave was faintly discernible under the shroud of mist, as if it was the dwelling place of some cave-type demon beasts. Whoosh! Without much hesitation, Chu Hen turned into a stream of light, shuttled through the mist, and flashed into the cave like a bolt of lightning. Soon, the environment of the cave appeared in Chu Hen's line of sight. Just as he thought, this was a demon beast's nest. The interior space was very large, and fallen bird feathers could be seen everywhere on the ground. It seemed that there was a falcon-type demon beast living here, however. At present, the owner of this nest did not seem to be at home. It was empty inside, and other than the uninvited guest, Chu Hen, there were no other living creatures. Of course, Chu Hen did not care about this. Immediately, he turned his hand and took out hundreds of high-grade crystal stones and scattered them around. The shining crystal stones were like water droplets that blended into the air and the ground, causing ripples to appear. Buzz, buzz. Immediately afterward, a dazzling glyph array was arranged. In the center of the glyph array, Chu Hen was shrouded in a soft golden light. His body became more and more illusory, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared. The aura that he emitted was also instantly cut off, and the entire cave became empty once again, as if the other party had never been here. Soon after, True Origin Violet Mansion Space. Rumble. At this moment, Chu Hen's True Origin Violet Mansion could be said to have set off a lot of turbulence and chaos. Thunder rumbled and chi waves covered the sky. The turbulent energy fluctuations were like raging waves that stirred up the wind and clouds. The world around them was chaotic, and only the central area was clear and bright. Mountains and rivers formed, and gathered the many powerful forces that Chu Hen had mastered. Roar! Roar! The deafening roar of the ferocious creature caused Chu Hen's True Origin Violet Palace to tremble unceasingly. High up in the sky, a rock that was tens of meters tall floated in the air like an exquisite finger peak. At the same time, two extremely powerful energy waves were continuously released from the geocentric crystal. With the Earth core crystal as the center, the space within a radius of nearly 1,000 meters was faintly distorted. The Earth core crystal, which contained an enormous amount of energy, was constantly transforming. Sometimes it would spit out a strange black light, and sometimes it would emit a dazzling golden light, such frightening power, as expected of the demon spirit transformed by two sky-profound realm experts. Feeling the violent rhythm within the True Origin Violet Palace, Chu Hen was secretly shocked. This kind of feeling was like a ferocious beast locked in a cage, and the other party could break free at any time, and struggle out of his True Origin Violet Palace. However, Chu Hen would not let this kind of situation happen. "Humph, I'm the one who calls the shots here," along with Chu Hen's silent shout, followed by a wave of thunderous rumbling sounds, only to see the ground of the mountain ridge below rapidly split open, and thick and heavy iron chains shot out explosively, like a mad dragon coming out of the sea straight into the sky. With the momentum of encircling from all sides, they directly and firmly entangled the Earth core crystal. Buzz, buzz, the entangled Earth core crystal emitted a dazzling light, resisting. To be precise, it was the resistance of the two demon spirits inside. Chu Hen sneered in his heart and said with a slightly frivolous smile, "No matter what, I spent so much effort to seize this Earth core crystal, I can't just let you guys take advantage of me." Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, an astonishing plundering power completely exploded out. The iron chains that wrapped around the geocentric crystal seemed to be connected to the blood vessels around the heart. With an extremely tyrannical and violent speed, it plundered the enormous energy contained within the geocentric crystal. The three sides divided it up, like tigers and wolves slaughtering each other. In the air, the earth core crystal blossomed with a resplendent holy radiance, like a divine sun from the 9 heavens. But this divine sun was firmly bound by more than 10 iron chains, and similarly, the 2 demon spirits that had fused into the earth core crystal were also bound. Time passed by minute, second by second. The true origin violet palace of Chu Hen was filled with an extremely dense large amount of spiritual energy. This abundant spiritual energy was like a spiritual fog floating in every corner of the violet palace. With the infusion of this spiritual energy, the hazy chaotic area in the distance actually became clear bit by bit and gradually revealed the earth, the sky, the mountains and rivers. After the true origin violet palace reached the earth-profound realm, it could be said to be the space formed by the advancement of the Dantian's Qi Si. Not only was the true origin violet palace able to continuously produce true origin energy, it was also able to store external energy. The true origin violet palace was the boundless chaotic world, and along with the advancement of one's realm, this chaotic world that hadn't been divided into the heavens and the earth would unceasingly open up, giving birth to all sorts of flowers and plants in the future. After the earth profound realm, when one stepped into the sky profound realm, one would be able to gather the energy of the sun, moon, and stars. At that time, it would be equivalent to having an independent world of one's own within one's body. The earth core crystal was a treasure of the heavens and the earth, and it was even a material used to refine god weapons. The energy it contained was comparable to the boundless energy of a river, and under the nourishment of its spiritual energy, the space within the true origin violet palace was currently expanding in a subtle manner. Similarly, at the same time that Chu Hen felt the energy within his body becoming stronger, he was also able to feel the aura emitted by the dripping god spear and the karmic saber becoming sharper and sharper. In the blink of an eye, a few days quietly passed. Rumble! After a few days of peace, an unprecedented violent upheaval was suddenly ushered in. Within the true origin violet palace, the mountains swayed and the rivers surged. The distant chaotic space swiftly expanded and opened up at a speed that was visible to the naked eye, and the towering mountain ranges slowly rose up, and they were even more precipitous than before. The originally bare mountain ridge and ground actually started to grow numerous verdant and tender little grass. Numerous shrubs and vegetation seemed as if they were blown by the spring wind, and all of them temporarily revealed their tips instantly. Chu Hen's true origin violet palace was filled with exuberant vitality. Under the upheaval, the river of true origin surged magnificently, waves surged into the sky, and a boundless great force swept out in all directions to charge into the sky. The powerful true origin energy ceaselessly multiplied explosively and enveloped the heavens and the earth. I've broken through. Traces of a bright light appeared in Chu Hen's heart. Awu! Roar! At the same time, the earth core crystal that was like a small hill in the sky above the 9 heavens emitted waves of intense upheaval without end. In the area above the sky, waves of air surged into the sky, and dense dark clouds and nebulae covered the sky and covered the sun. Strong chilly winds whistled through the heavens and the earth, and the icy cold and ghastly aura of death caused the temperature within the true origin violet palace to ceaselessly plummet. Compared to before, the entire body of the earth core crystal had undergone a huge change. The color and luster of its surface had changed from the initial dark gold to a grayish white, and it was covered with deep cracks, kacha. The cracks continued to increase, densely packed like the cracks on a dry riverbed. Buzz buzz! At this time, a dazzling golden light actually bloomed and shot out from the crack. Looking from afar, it was like a sun hidden behind the clouds and mist, and an astonishing rhythm was brewing and growing from within. The space fluctuated rhythmically, and an increasingly strong aura spread out in all directions. Subsequently, a deafening boom sound shook the heavens and the sky shook. The earth core crystal that was as big as a palace actually exploded in the middle, and the vast and mighty shock wave mixed with the crushed stone dregs spread out to the heavens and the earth. Chu Hen's entire true origin violet palace shook along with it, and the blood in his body surged up, and even the flow of his blood was speeding up. What's this? Chu Hen's heart was endlessly startled. Amidst the fragments that filled the sky, a bright and dazzling ray of light appeared in the sky like a rainbow. That ray of light was a saber, shaped like a pu-chong leaf, with a silver blade that was perfectly straight like a sword and emitted a boundless sharpness, the Tianai saber. The weapon of Bailey Qi, the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies of Conquering Cloud. Roar! As soon as the Tianai saber appeared, the sky immediately shone with boundless holy light. Along with a monstrous ferocious might, an awe-inspiring white saber-toothed tiger with an aura that could shake mountains and rivers hung high in the sky like a star. This white saber-toothed tiger's entire body was surrounded by holy patterns of light, and its body was well built and perfect. When it opened its mouth, a pair of sharp fangs could be seen. Where's the draining spirit spear? Chu Hen was puzzled. Could it be that Bailey Qi's demonic spiritual body won and devoured the draining spirit spear of the Heaven's unified dynasty's great general Su Qing? That shouldn't be the case. The strength of the two was about the same when they were alive. Bailey Qi shouldn't have won so easily. Roar! Just as Chu Hen was puzzled, something unexpected happened again. The Tianai saber suddenly swallowed and spat out a strange dark light. Accompanied by the distortion of space, the Tianai saber's blade actually took on a strange twisting shape. The blade immediately extended and elongated, and a long spear immediately took shape. The sharp spearhead was long and narrow in the shape of a diamond. Connecting the spearhead and the body of the spear was a strange spine, like the spine of a dragon. It was very gorgeous and had an extraordinary aura. It was the draining spirit spear. Roar! In the next moment, the draining spirit spear set off a monstrous wave of air, causing the sky to darken and the earth to howl. Immediately after, the majestic saber-toothed tiger phantom in the sky immediately turned into a huge lizard phantom. This lizard beast was not only huge, but it also had a pair of wings on its back, and its entire body was covered in stone-like scales. It was like an ancient creature from ancient times. It raised its head and roared at the sky, causing Chu Hen's blood to boil. What was going on? Screech! Suddenly, a colorful sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow covered in multicolored light appeared in a corner of the Violet Palace. It let out a loud and clear cry and said excitedly. Chapter 775. What a great surprise! The Tianai saber and the draining god spear have fused together. The sacred wing heavenly flame bird's sudden words startled Chu Hen, and he asked in astonishment. Fused together? What's going on? This is a special characteristic of the crystal of the Earth's core. It's usually one of the main materials used to refine divine weapons. It's extremely effective in fusing various materials together. However, the Tianai blade and the dripping god spear were activated by the crystal of the Earth's core by a freak combination of factors, causing them to fuse together. The probability of this happening is extremely low. I didn't expect you to encounter it, although the sacred wing heavenly flame bird's explanation was relatively detailed. Chu Hen had never come into contact with artifacts, so he was a little confused. However, he roughly understood that it was the geocentric crystal that had inadvertently allowed the two weapons to complete their fusion. But is it really a good thing for the two weapons to fuse into one? Chu Hen couldn't help but doubt. To be honest, when Chu Hen first saw the draining god spear and the Tianai saber in the great valley of the land of extreme negative energy, he was tempted. As his cultivation level increased, finding a suitable weapon was a problem. The sickle of death that he took from the man of the Fong clan was broken in the scuffle with the blood-refining Hall. However, the blue ran sword was not the most convenient weapon in Chu Hen's opinion. The draining god dragon's pine spear could replace the frightening demon slayer spear, and the Tianai saber could replace the limitless tooth. This was what Chu Hen was thinking. Humph, how stupid are you? The sacred wing heavenly flame bird sneered in disdain. When the two weapons fuse into one, not only does the overall quality increase greatly, but they can also be switched at will. Wait, switched at will? Chu Hen's mind lit up. That's right. The sacred wing heavenly flame bird affirmed. After all, the two weapons are already finished product. Although the geocentric crystal fused them together, their properties are still independent and won't affect their own characteristics. Chu Hen only understood half of what he heard. Okay, I'm a little confused. Just tell me what I should do next. It's very simple. Wipe out the two demon spirits attached to the draining god spear and the Tianai saber. Then, this item will be yours. Roar! Roar! A chaotic and powerful aura filled Chu Hen's entire Jinfu. In the sky above the highest heavens, the dripping god spear and the Tianai saber were constantly switching back and forth. One moment it was like a silver rainbow, the next moment it was like a dark flame. The majestic silhouette of the saber-toothed tiger and the domineering and dark ancient lizard dragon also appeared. Competing in life, competing in death. A wisp of remnant thought was unforgiving. Gusts of chilly wind enveloped the world as the draining spirit spear and the heavenly karma saber collided back and forth, constantly erupting with intense shockwaves. At this moment, Chu Hen also began to prepare for the next mission. Buzz buzz. Surging true essence surged out from the source of energy below, and it transformed into a huge golden palm of true essence that stretched towards the draining god spear. However, just when the palm was about to grab the draining god spear, the draining god spear transformed into a strand of flowing light and vanished on the spot. It was like a shooting star that pierced through the heavenly river, and it flashed directly towards a chaotic world. Rumble! In an instant, the draining god's spear directly struck the hazy chaotic area ahead, and it was earth-shattering. The sky shook, and the entire Jinfu felt as if it was being struck by a mountain and river. Even Chu Hen's body shook along with it. You still want to escape? Chu Hen couldn't help but feel slightly amused. It looked like the two demon spirits didn't intend to submit just like that. The draining god's spear blossomed with a dazzling silver light when it failed to break through, and then it transformed into the Tianai saber. Buzz! Buzz! The peerlessly imposing aura of the saber erupted, and the Tianai saber glowed brightly as it instantly transformed into a 1,000-meter-wide saber light. Swish! As the silver blade slashed down, it was as if it was splitting the heavens and earth apart as it ruthlessly slashed at the mountain ridge below. Rumble! Rubble crumbled as the precipitous mountain ridge was directly split apart. In an instant, a 10,000-foot-long natural chasm appeared on the ground. What a powerful force! Chu Hen was shocked once again. No wonder the people of the Heaven Dynasty and the country of Conquering Cloud didn't forget these two weapons even after 1,000 years. The draining god spear and the Tianai saber were really not ordinary items. There was no need to doubt that they were on the Saint Artifact list, and they might even be very high up. He couldn't let them mess around, or else his Jinfu might really be turned upside down. Boom! Bang! For a moment, the draining god spear and the Tianai saber rampaged in Chu Hen's Jinfu, and the mountains were flattened, and the sky turned dark. Fortunately, Chu Hen's cultivation had just made a breakthrough, or else his Jinfu of the second order of the Earth Profound Realm wouldn't be able to withstand their powerful force. And the stronger the power displayed by these two weapons, the more surprised Chu Hen was. That's enough! Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely powerful aura suddenly swept over from one side of the sky. On the other side, A 30 kilometers tall and powerful figure seemed like a fiend god that controlled this expanse of the heavens and the earth. As soon as the energy of chaos appeared, the heavens and the earth dimmed. After that, the black figure stretched out his arms, causing waves of energy to surge while space pulsated. Strands of black light shot out and swept towards the Karma blade. And on the other side, a pair of purple demonic eyes that floated in the sky also shone brightly, as if the eyes of a demonic god were flickering with a demonic purple light, like a purple sun illuminating the sky. Buzz, buzz. Under the suppression of the chaotic force and the demonic eyes, the Tianai saber couldn't move, but it wasn't willing to give up just like that. Roar! Then, along with a monstrous silver light, a white saber-toothed tiger appeared in the sky with the momentum of a roaring mountain and river. Immediately after, the Tianai saber transformed into the draining god spear. Under the cover of the cold wind, the winged ancient lizard dragon appeared in the sky. The saber-toothed tiger and the ancient lizard dragon appeared at the same time, one on the left and one on the right. They roared at the sky and displayed their ferocious might, resisting the suppression of the chaotic force and the demonic eyes. Then, the draining god spear released a dense black light and a dazzling silver radiance. The intertwining light beams were like streamers, constantly revolving. Then, two figures that emitted a dense aura of death appeared in the sky, facing each other. These two figures were wearing general armors, displaying a domineering aura. Under the armors were malevolent skeletons. Although these two demonic spirits looked terrifying, Chu Hen could still feel the heroic spirit from them. One was the North vanquishing Duke of the Heaven Unified Dynasty, Great General Su Cheng. The other was the Commander-in-Chief of the three armies of the State of Conquering Cloud, General Bailey Qi. The two were outstanding heroes in life, and they still had extraordinary bearings in death. Looking at the scene in front of him, Chu Hen had an indescribable feeling of regret. After a brief moment of hesitation, Chu Hen actually withdrew his power, causing the black light and the purple wave to quickly recede. Then, Chu Hen's thunderous momentum spread out and reverberated in the Violet Palace of True Essence. Seniors, Qingshan has passed away. Things remain the same, but people have changed. In life, you were an outstanding hero, and in death, you became a heroic spirit. Why can't you let go of the last obsession in your heart? I hope that you two seniors can let go of your obsession. This junior, Chu Hen, will definitely reappear in the draining god spear, and the Tianai saber's edge, reincarnate. Buzz. As soon as Chu Hen's voice fell, the two skeleton army souls seemed to be moved. Their scarlet eyes slowly opened and looked at each other. After fighting for a lifetime, perhaps it was time to end it. The saber is given to the fated, the heavenly karma still exists. The spear is given to the future, the draining god shocks the heavens. A heavy sound rang in Chu Hen's mind, and shock immediately filled his heart. These two demon spirits actually had consciousness? Demon spirits did not have wisdom, but things in the world were not completely absolute. Immediately afterward, the bodies of the two army souls began to become transparent, and transformed into endless light spots floating in the sky, like spirit butterflies leading to another world, slowly disappearing without a trace. The three armies can seize the commander, the heavens rule the world. 100 cities kill the enemy king, 1,000 autumns. Two distant voices reverberated in Chu Hen's violet palace of true essence, like dust floating between heaven and earth, spreading far away, and finally disappeared in silence. The phantoms of the saber-toothed tiger and the ancient lizard dragon floating in the sky also slowly dissipated and hid. In the end, only a sharp spear remained there, with a dark light lingering around it, and the dragon bone in the middle had a special sharpness. Chu Hen was lost for a long time. Chapter 776. True Essence Violet Palace, bright and clear, forming a world of its own compared to before, Chu Hen's True Essence Violet Palace had undergone a complete transformation. Not only had its space expanded, but it had also grown a patch of green vegetation. It was even more exuberant than before. As his cultivation continued to increase, his true essence Violet Palace would gradually become a brand new small world. At this moment, there was a strange white jade inkstone placed at the peak of a magnificent mountain. This inkstone was like a large ice jade bed, and it emitted a dense aura. With this white jade inkstone as the center, cracks that looked like spirit vines spread in all directions. If one looked down from above, this inkstone was like a strange heart of the earth, continuously supplying spiritual energy to Chu Hen's true essence Violet Palace. Immortal soul nurturing inkstone. Just like the geocentric crystal, it was also a treasure of heaven and earth used to forge divine weapons. This was the treasure that Chu Hen had obtained from the underwater pool after the fierce battle between the evil beast of death and the ghost octopus. The immortal soul nurturing inkstone had the property of storing spiritual energy in the world. If placed in his true essence Violet Palace, it could constantly absorb spiritual energy from the outside world for Chu Hen. It was equivalent to being in a meditative state at all times. Buzz buzz. A powerful force was released, and in the middle of the immortal soul nurturing inkstone, there was a sharp and gorgeous cold spear. The tip of the spear was pointed straight down, about 3 inches into the spirit inkstone. With the tip of the dripping god spear as the center, a complicated cobweb-like pattern extended towards the surface of the spirit inkstone. Circles of flowing, ripple-like beams of light lingered around the dripping god's spear like ribbons of light. Looking from afar, the spear exuded a fierce and powerful aura, like a god. Then, with a thought from Chu Hen, a strange energy rhythm spread between heaven and earth. Boom! In a split second, the draining spirit spear, which was surrounded by a dark light, emitted waves of resplendent golden light. The body of the spear distorted, like a floating water column, and then a perfectly straight silver blade replaced its original position. Although the Tianai saber did not look gorgeous, it had an unconcealable sharpness to it. His simplicity revealed the might to annihilate an army of 10,000. Good spear, good saber. Chu Hen could not help but sigh inwardly as he sensed the aura emanating from the two weapons. The quality of the draining god spear and the Tianai saber was much higher than he had imagined. Even the blue Ran sword might not be able to compete with them. That's about it. Let's leave this thing here to refine. The saintly winged heavenly flame sparrow's voice rang out. Along with the dazzling multicolored light that appeared in the sky, a divine bird that looked down on all living things appeared in the sky. The Violet Palace of True Origin is the most important place in your body, and it is also the place where the source energy gathers. Many experts like to place themselves here and use their source energy to temper it. This way they can achieve the goal of connecting their minds with their own weapons and use it more easily. I understand, replied Chu Hen. I don't know if you're lucky or what, but in just a few days, you've obtained the immortal breeding spirit inkstone and the geocentric crystal, 2 supreme treasures used to refine divine weapons. The draining god spear and the Tianai saber have absorbed most of the geocentric crystal's energy, and now they're being tempered by the immortal breeding spirit inkstone. If these 2 weapons are of a high enough level, there's a chance that they might evolve into divine weapons. What? Evolve into divine weapons? Chu Hen's heart immediately lit up, and he could not help but ask, "Are you serious?" "I'm just saying there's a chance. Why are you so excited?" The saintly winged heavenly flame sparrow scolded disdainfully. Chu Hen smiled and said, "I've never seen a divine weapon before, and I desperately want one." This was indeed the truth. To anyone in the world, divine weapons were treasures that they greatly desired. That's simple. As long as you hurry up and help me return to peak condition, I can satisfy whatever you want. Is that so? Chu Hen was slightly flabbergasted. Shortly after, he subconsciously asked, "Pardon me for asking, but who exactly are you? Why were you sealed in the 100 Nations province?" "That's none of your business." Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. The sudden change in tone instantly caused the atmosphere to become a little stiff. Chu Hen was a little surprised. Wasn't this change in attitude a little too fast? Or perhaps, he had unintentionally touched the other's bottom line? Sorry. Chu Hen faintly smiled. When he saw that the immortal breeding spirit inkstone had stabilized, he withdrew his consciousness from the true essence Violet Palace. Then, Chu Hen walked out of the cave. Whoosh! Chu Hen stretched his arms and let out a long sigh of relief. He stood at the entrance of the cave, his palms blocking the sunlight that shone down. Golden rays of light shone through the gaps between his fingers, shining on Chu Hen's handsome face. His fair skin glowed with a faint red and transparent luster. After being stifled inside for so many days, now that he breathed in the fresh air of the outside world, he suddenly felt as if he had been enlightened. Fourth level of the Earth Profound Realm. Chu Hen put down his hands and lightly clenched his fists. There was a flash of light at the corner of his eyes. The enormous energy contained in the geocentric stone crystal was divided between the dripping god spear, the Tianai blade, and Chu Hen. And Chu Hen, who had the geographical advantage, took the big head part. That majestic spirit energy that was like a river opened up the space in the true essence Violet Palace by more than double. In just a few days, he had jumped 2 realms. If he encountered Xian Gu and Bai Nian from the Heaven Imperial Dynasty again, he wouldn't have any other concerns. Screech! At this moment, a loud and clear eagle cry sounded in the mountain stream. A black dot appeared in the sky. Chu Hen raised his head and saw a white eagle with a wingspan of more than 100 zhang circling above his head. It seemed like the owner of the cave had returned. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly. I'm really sorry for occupying your nest for so many days. I'll leave now. Goodbye. Swish. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Hen instantly turned into a stream of light and leaped into the sky, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. After leaving, Chu Hen headed east. Counting with his fingers, he had already been separated from the main group of Mount Kunliu for nearly 10 days. 10 days was not a long time, but it was not a short time either. Anything could happen. Even though Chu Hen believed in the strength of the 2 hall masters of Mount Kunliu, it was still a better choice to meet up with them. Swish. Chu Hen's movement speed was extremely fast. The vast mountains constantly swept past under his body. Goo goo. Suddenly, a low cry of birds and beasts attracted Chu Hen's attention. He stopped and looked at the forest below him. Then, he moved and landed steadily on the branch of a towering tree. Following the direction of the sound, he saw a small and exquisite kingfisher perched on a tree branch in front of him. The kingfisher didn't look eye-catching, but it let out a rhythmic call. This was just a very ordinary scene. It would be abnormal if there weren't the cries of birds and beasts in the forest. However, Chu Hen's eyelids twitched, and a trace of joy appeared on his face. There was no other reason than that the kingfisher's call was the gathering signal from the internal members of Mount Kunli before coming to the ancient desolate heaven domain. Shanzhen, Fu Qin, and the others had told Chu Hen about this. Chapter 777. Boom! Heavy forces collided fiercely in the forest like a mountain torrent, spreading out along with a mighty momentum. The mountains trembled, and flocks of birds and beasts were startled in the distance. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 5 or 6 figures in a sorry state quickly flew back and landed. Their eyes revealed a hint of solemnity and panic. Oh no, there's an ambush! Ling Tao, you guys retreat quickly, I'll cover you. A steady and hurried voice sounded, but the person behind him strongly refused. No, I'll cover you. Su Lang, you guys retreat quickly. Hee, none of you can leave. The next moment, a strange howl was heard. More than a dozen gloomy figures flashed out from the surrounding dark forest like ghosts and surrounded them like a pack of wolves. Hee, just a few of you to explore the way? Aren't you courting death? The one who spoke was a thin man with a pair of sharp iron claws on his wrist. He looked at the people from Mount Kunliu with great interest and said, Su Lang, Ling Tao, right? You two are quite famous in Mount Kunliu. Our blood refining hall has always been a place that cherishes talent. Why don't you come and work for us? We'll definitely not treat you badly. Dream on. Su Lang scolded with a gloomy face. Without saying anything, he stood up with his sword and stabbed towards the man. Ling Tao, you guys leave immediately, quickly. The situation was critical, and Su Lang had already decided to throw caution to the wind. Ling Tao and the others changed their expressions and gritted their teeth. Go. Humph, do you think you can leave? The thin man raised his hand and waved his iron claws, blocking Su Lang's sharp sword, and sneered disdainfully, Leave one alive, kill the rest. He understood. The people from Blood Refining Hall sneered. They were as fierce as wolves, and their eyes were bloodthirsty. All of them pounced on the people from Mount Kunliu. Damn it! Su Lang frowned tightly, and his attack continued to speed up, intending to kill the leader in front of him first. However, the cultivation of the gloomy man was higher than that of Su Lang. No matter how the latter attacked, it was easily resolved. Hey, I'll ask you a few questions now. If you answer them well, I'll let you live today. What do you think? CK off. Su Lang swung his sword several times in a row, and the sharp sword beams interweaved together, forming a sharp pillar-shaped sword chi that exploded out. The astonishing sword force set off a hurried and ear-piercing sound. The gloomy man smiled contemptuously, then crossed his arms, and a pair of sharp iron claws erupted with a scorching hot cyclone ripple, bang. He fiercely stamped his foot on the ground. Rumble! Surging hot flames soared into the sky, and a spherical shield of light immediately enveloped him. Flame shield. Hiss! Su Lang's sword pierced the arc-shaped shield, and ripples of light spread out in all directions. A thick layer of the soil on the ground was peeled off, and the surrounding trees and plants were crushed into powder. Even though Su Lang's sword was extremely powerful, it was unable to penetrate the opponent's defense. That's all you've got? That's really a pity. The man smiled sinisterly, and then 2 rays of cold light burst out from his eyes. Subsequently, the flame shield outside his body distorted violently. Bang! With an explosive sound, the shield exploded from the middle, and a vast and surging heat wave pounced towards Su Lang. The incomparably ferocious impact was like a mountain and river crashing down. Su Lang suddenly felt his arms shake, and he was thrown out with his sword. He smashed onto the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Lang. Senior brother Su Lang. Ling Tao and the others turned pale with fright, and they seized the time to attack fiercely. However, in this kind of situation, the more chaotic it was, the more dangerous it was. Very soon, 2 people were chopped to the ground one after another. You bastards, I'll fight it out with you. Ling Tao was extremely furious, and his eyes were bloodshot. However, a few experts from the Blood Refining Hall surrounded him, making him look like a trapped beast. No matter how he tried to break out of the encirclement, it was difficult for him to break out. Su Lang, who fell onto the ground, covered his chest with one hand, and stared fiercely at the gloomy and thin man who was slowly walking over. The latter said contemptuously, Tell me, what's the current state of your Demon Slayer Palace, Master Wenliang? Are you going to die soon? Pfft! Su Lang spat out a mouthful of blood and sneered coldly, You guys are really indulging in fantasy. Our palace master Wenliang is fine, but isn't your sect master Ho Lai going to die soon? Why aren't you guys running away? If you're slow, you'll be buried in the ancient, desolate heaven realm forever. Ha ha ha. Seeing Su Lang's unyielding look, killing intent surged in the man's eyes, and his face turned ashen. The veins on his forehead bulged, and he shouted in a deep voice, Humph, I asked you guys to be stubborn. Later, I'll let you guys experience my method. I'll make all of you wish you were dead. Wish you were dead, however, just as he finished speaking, an unprecedented surging sword aura suddenly surged in their direction. Everyone was shocked and subconsciously looked over. They saw a torrent of sword aura surging from the forest behind them. The densely packed sword auras gathered together, like a sword river. Towering trees were crushed into pieces, and the grass and trees were all crushed into powder. What? Everyone's faces changed dramatically, and the pupils of the people of the blood refining hall shrank. Before they could react, the numerous sharp sword auras penetrated their bodies like pear flowers in a storm, and penetrated their vital parts. Hiss, hiss, hiss! The blood rain danced, and the red liquid splashed wantonly. With shrill screams, the experts of the blood refining hall were pierced into sieves by the powerful sword rain one after another. The world was completely shrouded in a black storm of sword rain. The thin man in front of Su Lang turned pale with fright, and he blurted out in shock, "One sword flying immortal technique, chi!" Before he finished his words, a bunch of sword shadow passed through his throat like a flowing light. The latter's face suddenly became dull, and his eyes were wide open, as if they were about to split. Blood sprayed out like a fountain. Plop! He knelt on the ground with his eyes wide open, and died with everlasting regret. In an instant, more than a dozen experts of the blood refining hall were killed. Su Lang and Ling Tao, who were shocked, were overjoyed at once. They blurted out without thinking, "It's junior brother Chu Hen." Buzz! An elegant and light gust of wind blew over, and a familiar figure surrounded by sword auras flashed over from far to near. It landed steadily in front of Su Lang and Ling Tao. "Junior brother Chu Hen, it's really you. It's great that you're okay." Su Lang and Ling Tao were overjoyed. They quickly got up from the ground and greeted him. Looking at the faces of the two that still had lingering fear, Chu Hen smiled slightly and nodded lightly. "Are you two all right?" Chu Hen regarded Su Lang and Ling Tao as real brothers and friends. During the journey to find the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order, they went through fire and water with Shanzhen, Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the others. They were very trustworthy people. The two of them shook their heads, and Su Lang asked, "Junior brother Chu Hen, where have you been these days? We're all very worried about your safety." During the chaotic battle in ancient Sky City, the blood refining hall and Mount Kunliu fought until the sky was dark. The blood refining hall summoned the powerful death demonic beast. Under the crisis, Chu Hen alone lured the death demonic beast away to create an opportunity for Mount Kunliu to retreat. After so many days had passed, no one knew how Chu Hen's situation was. Now that they saw him safe and sound, they were more or less relieved. "We'll talk about my matter later." Chu Hen raised his hand and asked, "How are the others? Where are Shan Zhen and the others?" Chapter 778. The situation right now is very urgent. Su Lang clenched his fists and spoke with a heavy tone. Hearing this, Chu Hen's expression slightly changed as a cold glint appeared in his eyes. "What is going on? We lost?" "Not to that extent." Ling Tao shook his head and denied it. "During the Battle of Ancient Sky City, we initially planned to retreat at full speed, but the blood refining gate didn't let us go. Not long after you lured the evil beasts of death away, an even more intense battle erupted between the two sides. The demon-slaying palace master and Ho Lai of the blood refining gate fought fiercely, creating an earth-shattering battle. In the end, both sides suffered heavy injuries. Both suffered heavy injuries? Chu Hen couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Ho Lai and Liao Qixio were two of the highest authorities of the blood refinement gate. Their strengths were not weaker than the three hall masters of Mount Kunlu. Both Wen Liang and Ho Lai suffered heavy injuries, so one could imagine how intense the situation was that day. "What about the soaring immortal hall master?" Chu Hen asked in a deep voice. The soaring immortal hall master, Qi Hanyu, was someone he respected, so he was quite concerned about her safety. Su Lang still shook his head. The soaring immortal hall master and Liao Qixio were fighting fiercely all the way. In the chaos, they accidentally lost contact with us. After saying this, Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the others clearly had a hint of anxiety in their eyes. The importance of the soaring immortal Hall Master to the entire Mount Kuan-Lu was self-evident. If something happened to her, then it would be an unimaginable loss. Lost contact? No news at all? Chu Hen frowned. Yes. However, the demon-slaying Hall Master has already sent senior brother Shanjun, Fuqin, Huaxue, and your friends to find the soaring immortal Hall Master. I believe there will be news soon. I know, Chu Hen replied in a low voice. Dan Zhen had always been a steady person, so he felt rather at ease with him leading the group. Moreover, Mu Feng, Mouse, and the Thousand Crane Sect's master, Qi Zhang, and the others possessed formidable cultivations. If they arrived in time and provided the master of the soaring immortal hall with a certain amount of support, then Liao Qixue wouldn't be a threat at all. What's the specific situation here? Hall Master Wen Liang is currently recuperating from his injuries. Senior brother Nangong Qian and senior sister Leng Lingyan will be issuing orders for now. Su Lang replied. Ling Tao also added, now our main force is guarding the fish stream 5 miles to the southwest, and the bastards of the blood refining hall have surrounded the main exit with the poisonous insects they raise. Once we want to break through, they will take action. Chu Hen nodded slightly and then shook his head. The people of the blood refining hall blocked the main exits of Mount Kunliu with poisonous insects. Obviously, they wanted to catch everyone in Mount Kunliu in one fell swoop. As for why they hadn't launched their attack yet, it was probably because they were waiting for an opportunity. This opportunity was Ho Lai. In other words, both Mount Kuan-Lu and the blood refining hall were caught in the battle of time. When Liang and Ho Lai, whoever recovered first would be able to control the overall situation. However, according to the current situation, the blood refining hall obviously had the advantage. It was very simple. Mount Kunliu was in the light while the enemy was in the dark. Today, we were ordered to investigate the base of the enemy of the blood refining hall. We didn't expect that we would be ambushed as soon as we came out. If junior brother Chu Hen didn't come in time, we would all be. Su Lang lowered his head and said shamefully. Chu Hen smiled slightly. You don't need to say these polite words between brothers. Take me to the fish stream. Okay. After a while, under the guidance of Su Lang, Ling Tao and the others, Chu Hen arrived at a precipitous mountain gorge. The surging waterfall, which was dozens of feet high, fell from the sky like the Milky Way. The turbulent water hit the pool below and splashed thousands of splashes. In the sky above the fish water stream, there was a dense swarm of poisonous insects and flying ants. There were tens of thousands of them, and their colors were bright and beautiful. Some were as big as an adult's fist, and some were as small as a mosquito. The dense swarm of poisonous creatures was like a tidal wave, standing on a mountain wall outside the fish stream. Chu Hen looked at the poisonous insects in the sky and couldn't help shaking his head secretly. It seems that the blood refining hall has put in a lot of effort this time. I'm afraid that such a large number of poisonous insects is all they have. Su Lang, who was behind him, couldn't help but smile bitterly. Junior brother Chu Hen, we can't go there directly. When we came out, we passed through a secret passage under the pool. This secret passage is connected to a lake outside. It was a vast mountain gorge with verdant hills, clear waters, and overgrown with flowers and grass. However, the people in Mount Kunliu were not in the mood to enjoy the beautiful scenery here. Everyone looked at the black poisonous insects that shrouded the area above the fish stream. This feeling was like a huge net covering their heads, giving them an indescribable sense of oppression. Damn it, I really want to fight with these bastards from the blood refining hall. Me too, but we don't even know where the enemy is hiding. I'm afraid that once we rush out, we will become targets. Then what should we do? Are we just going to waste time here? No, as long as the demon-slaying hall master recovers, we will kill them until they cry for their parents. At the entrance of a quiet mountain cave, 2 elder-level experts guarded the door, one on the left and one on the right. Their expressions were solemn and their gazes were sharp, as if they were guarding the door. At this moment, a young man and a young woman walked towards them. They were none other than Nangong Ku and Lung Lingyan, the two top genius disciples. "How is the palace master?" Nangong Ku took the lead to ask. The two elders looked at each other, and one of them said, "I don't know. Tell us if you have anything to say. Don't disturb him." Nangong Ku frowned slightly and said with slight dissatisfaction, "I am the direct disciple of the palace master. Even I can't go in? It's best not to disturb him," the elders said in a more old-fashioned manner. At this time, a series of noisy footsteps came from afar. The few of them turned around and looked. When they saw the person in the lead, everyone's expression changed. "Chu Hen." Lung Lingyan looked up and quickly walked forward. "You're back?" Seeing the person in front of him, Chu Hen smiled politely. "Senior Sister Lung." "Senior Sister Ling, Junior Brother Chu Hen came back with me. Half an hour ago, our team was ambushed by the enemy. Junior Brother Chu Hen arrived just in time, so we survived," Su Lang said in a low voice. Chu Hen nodded in affirmation. "I received the Kingfisher's transmission signal from a forest 100 miles away. That's how I found this place." Lung Lingyan could not help but laugh. She replied in a slightly strange manner, "You're really lucky. We've been worried about your safety." Chu Hen touched his nose. "Senior Sisterling, are you afraid that I won't be able to return your money after I die?" "You're right. I've always remembered the water soul essence you owe me." At that time at Mount Kuan-Lu, Chu Hen had unintentionally snatched away Lung Lingyan's water soul essence. After that, Lung Lingyan had always felt that Chu Hen was a little displeasing to the eye. However, after the battle at the ancient city, when Chu Hen had disregarded his own safety and lured away the death evil beast spirit, Lung Lingyan's attitude towards him had changed. Her tone was much gentler than before. On the other hand, Nangong Ku, who was not far away, had a slightly cold expression on his face. There was a complicated expression on his face. "How's Lord Palace Master?" After exchanging a few pleasantries, Chu Hen brought the topic back to the main topic. Lung Lingyan glanced at the cave guarded by the two elders and said, "I'm not sure yet." Before she finished speaking, a deep and dignified voice sounded from inside. "Come in." Everyone's hearts jolted as their eyes lit up. At the same time, the two elders guarding the entrance of the cave also let down their guard and took a step back, opening up a path for them to pass through. Nangong Ku, Lung Lingyan, Chu Hen, Su Lang, and Ling Tao entered one after another. Inside the cave, the first thing that entered everyone's eyes was a flat stone platform. An extremely dignified middle-aged man sat on the stone platform. It was the Devil Slayer Palace Master, Wen Liang. Under the dim light, Wen Liang's slightly pale face could be vaguely seen. However, his eyes were still sharp like the god of thunder, emitting a powerful and domineering aura. "Palace Master!" Everyone cupped their fists and saluted respectfully. Wen Liang's eyes first fell on Chu Hen. With his eyesight, it was not difficult for him to see the changes in Chu Hen's aura these days. "How's the demonic beast of death, Palace Master?" Chu Hen nodded slightly and replied solemnly, "The demonic beast of death has been killed." "What?" As soon as he said that, Nangong Ku, Lung Lingyan, and the others' expressions changed again. Their faces were full of disbelief. The demonic beast of death has been killed? How could Chu Hen do that with his strength? However, seeing that Chu Hen was calm and did not seem to be lying, everyone was even more surprised. "Is that true?" Nangong Ku clenched his fists and stared at Chu Hen. Chu Hen raised his eyelids and replied calmly, "Have you seen it return to the blood refining hall these days?" "Wow!" Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the others gasped. Their gazes were filled with admiration when they looked at Chu Hen again. Previously, they only thought that Chu Hen had escaped from the jaws of death, but they did not expect that he would counterattack so forcefully. Based on this, Chu Hen would definitely surpass Nangong Ku and Lung Lingyan in the competition for the position of sect master in the future. The demon-slaying temple master, Wen Liang, heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Hen's action could be said to have eliminated a major threat to Mount Kunliu. The demon-slaying temple master, Wen Liang, heaved a sigh of relief. The demon-slaying temple master's action could be said to have eliminated a major threat to Mount Kunliu. If it was allowed to grow, it was very likely to become a heavenly beast in the future. At that time, if the blood refining hall used its bloodline to reproduce, it would be a huge threat to the entire Mount Kunliu. You've done well this time. It was rare for Wen Liang to express his appreciation for Chu Hen, but apart from that, he did not express anything else. After all, Chu Hen's identity was special. It was not realistic to change Wen Liang's opinion of him with only one action. Then, Wen Liang turned his eyes to Nangong Ku and Lung Lingyan. What's the result of your investigation? Temple Master. Lung Lingyan opened her red lips and said in a serious tone, I caught a small leader of the blood refining hall in the forest in the south this morning. From him, I learned that Ho Lai's injury has recovered by more than 70%. What? More than 70%? Chapter 779. More than 70%? Hearing the news, their faces turned pale, and they all looked at Wen Liang, the master of Demon Slayer Temple. Wen Liang narrowed his eyes and looked calm. His whole body revealed a calm aura of someone who had been through many hardships. Humph, I think it's a trap. They want to disturb our minds. Nangong Ju sneered and said in a low voice, Ho Lai was hit by the master's heart-destroying palm. His internal organs were damaged. It's not bad for him to recover 50% in just a few days. Lung Lingyan pursed her red lip. She wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Finally, she didn't say anything. Nangong Ju continued, Master, I've found out the hiding place of one of the main groups of the blood refining hall. Oh! Their eyes lit up. Su Leng couldn't help but say, Where? 10 miles away in the northwest direction, there is a dam embankment. On the other side of the dam, there is a hidden jungle. Roughly, there are at least more than 200 masters of the blood refining hall lurking there, more than 200. For the entire blood refining hall, this number was actually not much. However, those who were selected to come to the ancient Baron's heaven realm were the elites of the elite disciples. Few of them were weak. In other words, these 200 masters occupied about 1/5 or 1/6 of all the people from the blood refining hall that came here. Moreover, after the previous few fierce battles, Feng Luo's strength had increased tremendously. Both the blood refining hall and Mount Kuan-Lu had lost a lot of disciples. Therefore, these 200 masters were the main backbone of the force. After a short silence, Wen Liang said lightly, Tell me your opinions. Nangong Ju, Lung Lingyan, and Chu Hen looked at each other. Lung Lingyan still took the lead to express her opinion. Master, I think it's better to continue to guard Fish Stream. This place is easy to defend and difficult to attack. It's more advantageous for us, however. Before Lung Lingyan could finish speaking, Chu Hen, who was at the side, shook his head. Lung Lingyan was slightly stunned. She looked up at him and said, You don't agree? Now Chu Hen had the absolute right to speak. It was impossible for others to ignore him. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes slightly and hesitated for a while. Then he said, If we take advantage of the situation to destroy the 200 masters of the blood refining hall in the northwest, the blood refining hall will retreat without fighting. His way of thinking was simple, crude, straightforward, and efficient. I agree with junior brother Chu Hen's idea. At this moment, Nangong Ju suddenly spoke. The few of them cast surprised glances at each other. It was no secret in Mount Kunliu that Nangong Ku and Chu Hen were not on good terms. It was rather surprising that the other party would agree with Chu Hen's suggestion. Just as junior sister Lingyan said, Ho Lai has recovered more than 70% of his injuries. Although it's unlikely, nothing is absolute. Therefore, we can't continue wasting time here. We must take the initiative. Nangong Ju ignored everyone's gaze and said, if we can wipe out the 200 hidden enemy masters in one fell swoop, it will definitely be a huge blow to the blood refining hall. At that time, even if Ho Lai's injury recovers 70% to 80%, we don't need to be afraid. That's reasonable. Su Lang immediately expressed his agreement. He then said, now our biggest advantage is that the people of the blood refining hall don't know that junior brother Chuhen is back. If junior brother Chuhen, senior brother Nangong, and senior sister Leng jointly attack, we will definitely be able to defeat them in the shortest time. The disciples of Mount Kunliu were a little aggrieved because they only defended and did not attack these days. At this moment, they all wanted to rush out and fight with the enemy to their heart's content. And the master of the demon-slaying temple was also a person who acted swiftly and decisively. Since he had found the winning point, how could he let it go? Nangong Ju, Leng Lingyan, Chuhen, listen to my order. Yes. I now order you to lead 300 disciples to attack the enemy's hidden team in the northwest dam area. You must complete the task in the shortest time. Wen Liang's eyes turned cold, emitting the power of thunder. Yes. The three of them answered in unison, and their momentum was like a rainbow. Without further ado, the three of them immediately retreated and began to plan and discuss the attack plan. Because this action was a very rigorous and top-secret attack, Chu Hen and the other two unanimously decided that they could not directly attack from the main exit of the Fish Water Ravine. If they wanted to kill the hidden team of the Blood Refining Hall in the shortest and most effective way, there was only one way, which was to approach the enemy secretly and launch an attack. And if they wanted to leave the Fish Water Ravine quietly, they first had to hide from the surveillance of those people who were waiting outside. That night, the night was dark and windy, and the cold wind in the mountain ravine emitted a bone-chilling coldness. Boom! Suddenly, a heavy and violent rumble broke the silence of the Fish River stream. What followed was a series of furious attacks. All kinds of powerful martial skills that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas attacked the swarm of venomous insects in the sky. Bang! Bang! Colorful lights crisscrossed, dazzling like a divine rainbow piercing through the sky, crushing poisonous insects and fire ants into pieces. Swift and fierce figures flashed out and started to kill these poisonous insects wantonly. However, just after a while, many powerful black shadows flew over from the sky of the peripheral area of the Fish Water Ravine. Hey, finally can't bear it? Do it. Don't let any of them escape. A chaotic battle broke out. Before the masters of Mount Kunliu finished breaking out of the encirclement, the people of the Blood Refining Hall quickly intercepted and killed them. All of a sudden, the airwaves flew and the fierce shock waves splashed. The entire sky above the Fish Water Ravine was in chaos, and the poisonous insects were wantonly flying. However, this chaotic battle did not last too long. In less than half a cup of tea's time, everyone from Mount Kunliu had retreated. Without any delay, they returned to the bottom of Fish Water Stream. This made people of the Blood Refining Hall a little confused. How could they admit defeat when they just started? Humph, a group of cowards. It seems that they just want to make some trouble. A disciple of the Blood Refining Hall sneered. Don't be too careless. The people of Mount Kunliu are full of trick. Don't fall into their trap. Another person warned. Don't worry. Every important entrance of the whole area is guarded. I promise they can't escape even if they have wings. At this moment, taking advantage of the 10 minutes created, the 300 masters of Mount Kunliu had already passed through the secret path under the pool and reached a lake outside the Fish Water Ravine. In the dark night, everyone's breath was cold and fierce. They crossed the mountains like ghosts and headed northwest at the fastest speed. Junior Sister Lingyan, you lead the Brothers of the Void Hall forward and kill all the sentries. Nangong Hao gave an order. I understand. Without any hesitation, Leng Lingyan, who was as elegant as a spiritual butterfly, quickly disappeared in the dark and dense forest with dozens of people. Despite such a big movement, Lung Lingyan and her people didn't emit any breath fluctuation. In terms of assassination and night attack, no one could do it better than Lung Lingyan. The heavenly void seal method that she practiced could hide her breath to the extreme. Sometimes, even if she stood behind someone, they couldn't feel it. This was something that Chu Hen had personally experienced. Whoosh! Whoosh! Chu Hen and Nangong Hao walked side by side. Behind them were the experts of Mount Kunliu. This operation was of great importance. Almost everyone had come with the determination to complete the mission. There was no room for mistakes. Nangong Hao and Chu Hen had almost no interaction along the way. They didn't even exchange glances. The two of them were like strangers. They didn't seem like companions at all. However, Chu Hen had to admit that Nangong Hao's ability to guide was very strong. The other party was calm and collected, so there was no need for him to give any instructions. Under normal circumstances, a 5-kilometer journey would only take a few blinks of an eye. However, the group traveled for nearly half an hour on foot. They didn't dare to release any energy fluctuations. Soon, Chu Hen, Nangong Ju, and the others led by them met up with Lung Lingyan. Under the shroud of the night, a dam that spanned thousands of meters of water loomed in front of everyone's eyes. The dam was very majestic. From afar, it looked more like a large stone bridge. On both sides of the stone bridge was a body of water. As the cold wind blew, the water rippled. On the stone bridge, every 50 meters or so, there was a disciple of the blood refining hall guarding. The defense was very tight. After this dam, we will reach the place where those people are hiding, Nangong Hao said in a low voice. In the darkness, his cold eyes were like a fierce wolf. When do we make our move? Lung Lingyan asked in a low voice. Nangong Hao looked up at the sky and swallowed. In an hour. An hour later, it was dawn. Every time this happened, it was the time when people were the most relaxed. Because when darkness and light alternated, the tension of the whole night would involuntarily be relieved. Chapter 780. The cold wind before the dawn was extremely bleak. Under the dim light, the dam bridge across the water with a width of more than 1 kilometer was like a road leading to another world. The water on both sides of the magnificent bridge was undulating. The waves were sometimes calm and sometimes surging. As dawn approached, the sentries of the blood refining hall, who had been guarding on the dam for a whole night, gradually relaxed. At the same time, traces of tiredness appeared on their faces. In the dark jungle about 500 or 600 meters away from the dam bridge, 300 expert disciples of Mount Kunliu were quietly lurking in the dark. However, when the first ray of dawn broke through the thick clouds in the sky, the tipsy light began to dispel the dark atmosphere. The moment the light arrived, a vast and mighty aura that was comparable to a torrent suddenly erupted. Do it! The cold words came out of Nangong Bai's mouth. The eyes of Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan suddenly turned cold. Without any hesitation, the three of them shot out like a phantom streamer and rushed to the dam bridge in front of them at the fastest speed. The experts and disciples of Mount Kunliu followed closely behind. The 300 elites all burst out with a powerful stance. Kill! Kids of the blood refining hall, give me your life. What? The sudden change made the people of the blood refining hall on the dam turn pale with fright. Oh no, someone is stealing! Bang! Before the person standing at the very front could finish speaking, a fierce fist force solidly smashed into his chest. In an instant, a mist of blood sprayed and pieces of flesh flew. That person's body was directly blown into pieces. Nangong Bai, the faces of the people of the blood refining hall at the back were pale and frightened. Yes. Nangong Bai raised his right hand and clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. A surging dark red flame rose up. He shouted loudly, "Kill everyone at full speed, yes!" The morale of the Mount Kunliu disciples was like a rainbow. Their piercingly cold aura was like a sharp sword as they attacked. Nangong Hao, Lung Lingyan, and Chu Hen took the lead and pushed forward at the fastest speed. They had to eradicate the 200 superiors lurking here before the reinforcements of the blood refining hall arrived, so they had to move fast. Stop them. Don't let them cross the bridge. Kill. Immediately after, on the other side of the dam bridge, several sharp and cold figures also quickly flew out. The experts from both sides instantly converged and attacked each other like two swarms of bees. Boom! Bang! A fierce scuffle broke out in an instant. Once they collided, the people of Mount Kunliu were like a hot knife through butter. They went straight into the enemy's group like a cold spear. Because it was an unprepared attack and the suppression of the number of people, the arrogance of the blood refining hall was quickly suppressed. Hiss! Chi! The sharp weapons cut through the flesh and made an extremely harsh and rapid sound. The saber light and the sword shadow were like graceful birds. The people of Mount Kunliu quickly harvested the lives of the superiors of the blood refining hall in the most powerful manner. Nangong Hao was as angry as a dragon. He struck with his palm, and the violent palm's strength was like a rainbow of the Great Way. More than a dozen superiors of the blood refining hall were shattered into blood mist on the spot. Lung Lingyan's body was light, like a spiritual butterfly flying in the sky. She turned into a beam of flowing light and flying shadow and quickly shuttled among the enemies. Wherever she went, the enemies were either killed or wounded. As for Chu Hen, there was no need to mention that he cut off the enemy's head with the flying immortal skill like cutting grass. The crisscrossing sword shadow lingered and danced around him. The gorgeous killing intent was full of magnificence. In just a few blinks of an eye, the troops of the blood refining hall were defeated and retreated step by step. Everyone from Mount Kunliu rapidly advanced towards the bridge, and soon they crossed the middle section of the bridge. Victory was in sight. The people of Mount Kunliu became more and more excited, and their eyes were full of sharpness. However, at this moment, the water on both sides of the dam bridge surged into the sky. The mighty wind swept over, and the center of the water was split open. A gully with a width of more than 100 feet was sunk. Hey, Nangong Hao, you really dare to come? A cold and sinister laugh was heard. Then, a cold and ferocious silhouette rushed towards Nangong with a mountain-like aura. Nangong Hao's eyes turned cold. He moved his mind, and an extremely angry true core strength surged in his palm. Bang! The next moment, their palms met, and the space was distorted. The aftermath of the frenzied true core strength surged wantonly, and the fierce recoil force made both sides fly back dozens of meters. Immediately after, a blurry black shadow stepped on the surface of the water to the side of Lung Lingyan's position. Boom! The waves piled up and water splashed everywhere. The opponent was extremely fast, and in an instant, he was in front of Lung Lingyan. Then, the black shadow leaped, and the moment he pounced toward Lung Lingyan, he split into two, turning into two blurry shadows. The two shadows, one on the left and one on the right, slashed at the opponent like a sharp blade. When faced with this sudden attack, Lung Lingyan's pretty face turned slightly cold, but she didn't show the slightest trace of panic. Her hands stretched out like the swaying of a willow, causing the air to fluctuate with a slight rhythm. After that, a rumbling sound rang out as water splashed in all directions, and two majestic water pillars actually shot out from the water in front of Lung Lingyan. The two water pillars were comparable to the flood dragons that came out of the sea, intercepting the two blurry shadows with lightning speed. Bang! Boom! Intense forces collided and intersected. Two surging aftershocks splashed in midair, and water splashed all over the sky like arrows. As Lung Lingyan retreated to defend herself, the two afterimages also merged together, and then a pale woman's face was faintly discernible. Gao Lang, Lu Fu, Nangong Ju and Lung Lingyan looked at the person in front of them, and shouted coldly at the same time. On the other side, Chu Hen frowned slightly, and a cold light flashed in the corner of his eyes. He had seen the two people in front of him before. In the chaotic battle in the ancient city, The two of them had fought with Nangong Ju and Lung Lingyan. The strength of their cultivation was something that Chu Hen had witnessed with his own eyes. The two of them were the top genius disciples of the Blood Refining Hall. Whether it was fame or strength, they were not weaker than Nangong Ju or Lung Lingyan. "Humph, you guys came fast enough." Nangong Ju clenched his fists, and strands of red light patterns overflowed from his body. A strong, violent, and dignified aura began to surge. Lung Lingyan frowned slightly. Since the reinforcements came so fast, they might have to retreat in advance. Hee. Gao Lang grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. "It's not that we came fast, but that we've been waiting here for a long time." Waiting for a long time? What did that mean? Lung Lingyan, Chu Hen, and the others could not help but change their expressions. In the next instant, Chu Hen, who was on the stone bridge on the dam, raised his eyelids and hurriedly shouted, "Retreat, quickly, retreat!" Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the other disciples of Mount Kuan Lu were similarly shocked. Without the slightest hesitation, they soared into the sky one after another and retreated. In the next second, countless dazzling and complicated runes appeared on the bridge and the water on both sides of the dam. Thousands of dazzling light patterns soared into the sky, and extremely violent energy waves were like magma brewing in the belly of a volcano. Boom! What followed was a terrifying shock wave that was comparable to the undercurrents of the deep sea. The violent power suddenly surged and exploded in the water. The entire dam, which was more than 1,000 meters long, was directly broken in the middle. It collapsed inch by inch, layer by layer, and rapidly extended to both sides. Chapter 781. Boom! A terrifying force that resembled the undercurrents of the deep sea suddenly exploded in the water below. The entire bridge of the dam broke apart in an extremely shocking and majestic manner. The vast and mighty flood surged and poured out, bringing along an incomparably violent shock wave that rushed towards the people of Mount Kunliu. Bang, bang, bang! The disciples of Mount Kunliu, who were caught off guard, were all hit by the huge force. Many of their internal organs trembled and they vomited blood. A group of people died on the spot and fell into the water below like birds with broken wings. Nangong Ku, Lung Lingyan, and Chu Hen were all greatly surprised. The three of them quickly gathered together and set up a defense. Looking at the pale faces of their companions behind them, Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the rest turned ashen. How could this be? That was the destructive shock caused by the explosion of the talisman array just now. The people of Blood Refining Hall were actually prepared for it. Hee. Gao Lang looked at Nangong Ku and the rest with a mocking smile and said disdainfully, "Did you really think that you could come here without anyone knowing? Too naive, too funny. From the moment you walked out of Fish Stream, you fell into our control." Ha 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 ha. Exuding a thick, complacent laughter, it made people feel disgusted. The woman named Lu Fu also stared at Lung Lingyan playfully. "It seems that the final result of the battle between the two of us is that I won. Isn't it too early to be happy?" Lung Lingyan replied with a sneer. "Do you think that you can stop us with just these few people? I'm sorry to tell you that all the people stationed nearby are on their way here, and—" Gao Lang crossed his arms in front of him and wore a playful smile on his face. He glanced sideways at the people of Mount Kunliu with a smug expression. "And what?" a disciple of Mount Kunliu asked hatefully. Boom! Before he could finish his sentence, Nangong Ku, who was standing behind Lung Lingyan, suddenly exploded with an extremely strong and violent aura. His eyes suddenly turned scarlet as he raised both of his palms and heavily hit Lung Lingyan's back with the force of a thunderbolt, and I was never a member of Mount Kunliu. Heart destruction palm. Bang! Along with the cold and indifferent voice, a muffled sound ruthlessly smashed into the hearts of everyone on Mount Kunliu like a heavy hammer. In an instant, everyone's eyes widened and their faces turned as white as paper. Lung Lingyan, who was caught off guard, trembled as a mouthful of blood gushed out from her mouth. Her exquisite and beautiful face was also dumbfounded, and her eyes were filled with dense disbelief. Heart destruction palm. Breaking mountains and rivers with the might of thunder. This palm strike went straight to the organs and attacked the heart meridian. Lung Lingyan was like a butterfly in the wind as she allowed the ferocious force of the palm to strike her flying, and fresh blood dyed her pure white dress red. Anger, shock, surprise, and most of all, disbelief. All the people in Mount Kunlun had red eyes. They never dreamed that senior brother Nangong, whom they admired the most, was the undercover of the blood refining hall. No wonder Mount Kunlun was ambushed by the blood refining hall in the ancient city. Today, the blood refining hall also predicted that they would make a sneak attack. In that short instant, all sorts of negative emotions surged in the hearts of everyone on Mount Kunlun. After the shock, it was replaced by the endless anger. Quick, save senior sister Lingyan. A disciple of the Void Hall shouted anxiously with red eyes. However, at the same time when Lung Lingyan was about to fall, more than a dozen experts of the blood refining hall had already flown out one step ahead of her. The cold and strong killing intent rushed towards Lung Lingyan, and their faces were full of grim smiles. Goodbye, Miss Ling, haha. The cold saber light and sword shadow stung everyone's pupils. Everyone on Mount Kunlun was so angry that their eyes almost popped out. They were shocked and angry at the same time. Lung Lingyan sighed helplessly. She never thought that death was so close to her. Buzz! But at this moment, an extremely cold current suddenly came out of nowhere. At the critical moment, a strange purple flame rose to the sky, like a torrent, and rushed to the people of the blood refining hall with the momentum of toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. As soon as the purple flame touched her body, it immediately flew and wrapped her whole body. Shrill screams were heard one after another. More than a dozen experts of the blood refining hall, who were about to besiege Lung Lingyan, all turned into ashes. What? Everyone's face changed again and again. Then, a young figure quickly flashed to Lung Lingyan's side and held her in his arms. Lung Lingyan leaned on his chest weakly. She raised her eyes slightly and looked at the young face in front of her. Her eyes could not help but ripple slightly. No, don't care about me, leave me, go. After saying that, Lung Lingyan closed her beautiful eyes and lost consciousness. It's you again, the bad guy. Seeing that Chu Hen saved Lung Lingyan, Nangong Hao's eyes were suddenly full of killing intent. Without saying anything, he raised his palm and hit Chu Hen. Go to hell. Humph! Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He held Lung Lingyan with both arms, and then lifted his leg to meet the palm strength of his opponent. Bang! A fierce airwave swept out. The red light mixed with the dense black light wantonly intersected. Nangong Hao's powerful palm strength not only failed to gain any advantage, but was also pushed back several meters by Chu Hen. Gao Lang and Lu Fu, who were watching the show, were slightly surprised. They did not expect that apart from Lung Lingyan, there was actually someone else in Mount Kunlun who could face Nangong Hao's attack head-on. After pushing Nangong Hao away with a kick, Chu Hen drew an arc in the air and immediately returned to Mount Kunlun's group. Junior brother Chu Hen. Hao's senior sister Lingyan. Chu Hen quickly passed Lung Lingyan to a medical disciple and said in a deep voice, "Retreat immediately. Su Lang, Lingtao, help me cover our retreat." "Yes. Understood." "Humph, none of you can leave today." Nangong Hao flung his sleeve fiercely. His entire face was filled with vicious killing intent. Hee, this is what I, Nangong Hao, have been waiting for." Looking at Nangong Hao, who was like a completely different person, many Mount Kunlun's disciples still could not believe what was happening before their eyes. "Nangong Hao, do you still have a conscience? The Devil Slayer Palace Master accepted you as his direct disciple. How can you face him by doing this? We're really blind to worship someone like you. You'll die a horrible death. We've been supporting you to become the next sect master. You're a disgrace to the name of Mount Kunlun." A few Devil Slayer Palace disciples scolded angrily. "Humph!" Nangong Hao sneered. When we take down Mount Kunliu, the position of sect master will still be mine. Today I, Nangong Hao, will leave my words here. If anyone is willing to follow me, I'll spare their lives. Otherwise, this muddy water will be your burial ground. The former senior and junior brothers had turned against each other. Gao Lang, Lu Fu, and the others from the Blood Refinement Hall sneered as they watched from the side. Just like what Nangong Hao had said earlier, he was never a member of Mount Kunliu. Bastard, I'll fight it out with you. Avenge our senior and junior brothers. Immediately, a few hot-tempered disciples charged at Nangong Hao without saying a word. Fools! Nangong Hao's face was filled with disdain. He spread open his arms and a powerful true yuan gathered between his palms. Then, he raised his hands, swoosh. Then, several crimson shadow blades slashed towards the people in front of them, as if they had traveled back thousands of years. Hiss, 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 blood splattered and limbs flew everywhere. In an instant, a few Devil Slayer Palace disciples were torn into pieces by Nangong Hao. Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the rest were furious. They clenched their fists so tightly that their veins bulged. Seeing the scene in front of him, Chu Hen's pupils could not help but faintly shrink. His ice-cold eyes quietly became deep and indifferent. "You're really merciless." Chu Hen slowly spat out a slightly light voice. Nangong Hao sneered. "Overestimating yourself." Next Chu Hen laughed as well. It was a laugh that was even more disdainful than Nangong Hao's. A chilly gust of wind blew past, and the water beneath them surged and roared. Chu Hen stood proudly in the air, slowly raised his right index and middle finger, and stared straight at Nangong Hao. Chapter 782. Today, I'll take Nangong Hao's worthless life. A majestic aura surged out from Chu Hen's body and a bone-piercing chill spread out in all directions. The raging waves crashed against each other in the middle of the broken bridge, causing water to splash everywhere. Everyone on Mount Kunliu stared in astonishment at the slender but not tall and broad figure in front of them. This was a formless murderous intent that caused their hearts to palpitate. "Ha ha ha ha!" Nangong Hao laughed instead of getting angry. He spread his arms slightly and his laughter came to an abrupt halt. His eyes shot out two icy rays of light. "Very good, very good. The only thing I admire about you is your stupidity that doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Buzz!" As soon as he finished speaking, Nangong Hao's murderous intent surged. A flame-like crimson light burst out from his body, and an overwhelming pressure surged towards Chu Hen. Su Lang, Ling Tao and the others' expressions changed when they saw this. They hurriedly exclaimed, "Junior brother Chu Hen, don't be rash. Nangong Hao is not someone you can handle." The crowd from Mount Kunliu thought that Chu Hen had said those words in a fit of anger. They knew very well just how powerful Nangong Hao was. However, before they could stop him, Chu Hen had already turned into a blur and disappeared from his original spot. A powerful black light immediately spread out and wrapped around the 9 underworld flames. Bang! In the next instant, the two figures, one red and one black, collided with each other like two meteors. Their cold and hard fists collided head-on, causing the space around them to tremble and the powerful shock waves to spread out behind them. "Humph, you're not weak." Nangong Hao's gaze was dark and cold. Following that, an even denser scarlet light surged out and pounced towards Chu Hen through his arm. However, Chu Hen merely smiled in disdain. Similarly, surging black light filled the air and spread out. Following that, a ferocious hidden force erupted with the astonishing strength of a mountain. "What?" Nangong Hao's expression changed. Bang! A muffled sound rang out and he felt his arm go numb. The scarlet true core power that covered his forearm was immediately shattered. Immediately afterward, Chu Hen leaped forward and raised his right arm at the same time. He gathered his strength, and the vigorous black cyclone concentrated on his fist. Not good. A hint of panic flashed across Nangong Hao's eyes, and he hurriedly dodged to the side. However, Chu Hen's speed was clearly even faster. An astonishing fist force erupted in an instant. His fist, surrounded by a powerful cyclone, landed solidly on Nangong Bai's chest with the force of a thunderbolt. Bang! Waves of chi stacked up as true essence converged. Along with a black ring of light, Nangong Ju was sent flying like a cannonball, falling from the sky and crashing into the water below. Thousands of splashes surged, and a large area of the water caved in, as if a meteorite had fallen. In just a single exchange, Nangong Qian was blasted into the water by Chu Hen. This sudden scene caused everyone present to be extremely surprised. The experts from Mount Kunliu and the Blood Refinement Hall were all astonished. How could Chu Hen be so powerful? Gao Lang and Lu Fu looked at each other. The former's eyes turned cold and he nodded slightly. "Heh, you're really good at hiding your strength. Let me have a taste of your skills." However, before Gao Lang could make a move, the water below once again surged into the sky. "Get lost, all of you. His life is mine. Don't interfere." His murderous aura hurt everyone's eardrums. Under the surging waves of water, Nangong Hao's eyes were bloodshot like an enraged beast. Anger. Absolute anger. Since that time on Mount Kunliu, Nangong Hao had been extremely displeased with Chu Hen's appearance. Today, if he did not kill him with his own hands, he would not be able to vent his anger. Seeing this, Gao Lang frowned and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he decided to stay where he was. Anyway, this motley crew has been completely surrounded. There's no need to panic. The piercingly cold murderous aura caused the airflow between heaven and earth to freeze. Chu Hen looked down at Nangong Hao, who was hovering above the water, and sneered frivolously. "In my opinion, it's better if you don't reject other people's help. You don't even have the right to make me use my full strength." Ridicule. The most disdainful ridicule. If it was someone else who said this, Nangong Hao would not be so angry. However, the person who said this was Chu Hen, and it completely ignited his anger. "Shut up, you'll die a horrible death if you talk too much. Today, I'll let you witness the true power of the Grand Demon Slayer art." Boom! Nangong Hao heavily stomped his foot. His boundless aura caused a huge depression to appear on the surface of the water. Terrifying waves rose from all four directions and shot straight into the sky, surging towards Chu Hen like a torrent. In the process of moving, the surging huge waves quickly turned into a scarlet-red color. Accompanied by sharp ghostly wails and wolf howls, a skeleton monster wielding a long blade charged out from within, and slashed at Chu Hen with its blade. Migres shuttle. The dazzling power of the 7 stars gathered in his palms. With a flip of his hand, Chu Hen pushed forward, and a long and sharp crescent shuttle shot out horizontally. It tore through the air and collided head-on with the ferocious monster. Bang! The extremely destructive crescent shuttle directly slashed the monster into pieces, and exploded into tens of thousands of scarlet water droplets. Just when everyone was shocked by Chu Hen's quick reaction speed, a huge scarlet-red fist once again forcefully pierced out from the torrent of water that overflowed the skies. The huge fist collided with the crescent shuttle, and the latter was immediately shattered. Boom! In the next instant, the shocking waves that had surged into the sky exploded like a star. What followed was a fierce and furious aura that was like a mountain that covered the heavens and the earth. The eyes of everyone present trembled. They could only see a dark red figure that was hundreds of meters tall appear in the midst of the dispersing water screen. This figure was like a demonic god that had walked out of an illusion. Its limbs were sharp, and its body was thin and slender. It wore a triangular helmet on its head. What a powerful aura! Everyone was secretly startled. Looking from afar, Chu Hen, who was standing in front of the opponent, seemed to be insignificant. So this is one of the 3 great techniques of Mount Kunliu, the Great Demon Slayer technique? Its aura is truly extraordinary. Gao Lang rubbed his chin and smiled faintly with a hint of playfulness. Buzz. Every time the gigantic figure trembled, it emitted a heaven-shattering might. It lowered its head to look at Chu Hen below and shouted with an incomparably heavy voice, "Use your one sword flying immortal technique. Today, I'll let you see who's stronger." The overwhelming ferocious aura caused everyone's heart to tremble. The huge figure actually raised its arm and spread its fingers. Space twisted in a spiral, and tens of thousands of scarlet rays flickered. A three-pronged ancient halberd appeared in its hand. The three-pronged ancient halberd was like a heavenly pillar in its hand, and its aura shook the heavens. It was like a demonic god, and even the sky turned dim. At this moment, everyone present felt as if they were standing under a mountain range that could uproot the 5 mountains. The people of Mount Kunlea looked at Chu Hen with some worry in their eyes. One sword flying immortal technique? Chu Hen's eyelids lifted slightly, and a dense black light surged in his eyes. Buzz! The air trembled, and a strange spear appeared in his hand. The spear's appearance was particularly gorgeous. It had a sharp, diamond-shaped spearhead, and a dragon spine connected to the spearhead and the body of the spear. It emitted a cold, dark light. I've said it before, you don't even have the qualifications to make me use my full strength. Then, he raised the draining spirit spear, and pointed the spearhead at the demon slayer figure. Chapter 783. Shing, as soon as the draining spirit spear appeared, it immediately released a powerful sharp light. Chu Hen pointed the spearhead at the huge phantom in front of him. His eyes were piercingly cold as he taunted with a frivolous posture. Anger, hatred, and boundless killing intent filled the sky, causing the entire water realm to sink into a violent ripple. The huge scarlet-red figure was like a demonic god. It looked down at Chu Hen from high above. Following that, it raised the trident in its hand high up. Endless scarlet light patterns started to circulate on the huge trident. You asked for it. Today, I will let you see the true power of the great demon slayer technique. The rough sound was like thunder piercing the ears, causing the blood of those who heard it to churn. In the sky, thunder clouds were densely packed, and peerlessly powerful lightning interweaved like snakes. Everyone present suddenly felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. All the people of Mount Kunlea had a serious and nervous expression. Junior Marshal Brother Chu Hen, don't forcefully resist the great demon slayer technique. A disciple of the demon slayer hall could not help but exclaim. As soon as he finished speaking, the boundless illusory figure suddenly exploded with an unprecedented ferocious aura. The huge halberd that was like it was used by a god, with the power to split the heavens and split the earth, slashed towards Chu Hen below. It's too late. Turn into ashes. The aura shook the mountains and rivers, shaking the surroundings. The huge scarlet-red halberd was like a divine pillar that fell from the sky. The airflow between the heavens and the earth became abnormally chaotic, and the entire space shook uneasily. The incomparably strong astral wind was like a torrent that crushed down towards Chu Hen. The water below, because of this frightening pressure, deeply caved in. At this moment, Chu Hen was in the middle of a torrent of hurricanes. He was like a butterfly caught in a storm. Looking at the destructive halberd, Chu Hen's eyes flickered with sparks. Buzz buzz! At the same time, Chu Hen's body was covered in black light, and the draining spirit spear in his hand let out a loud and fierce beast cry. Roar! An icy cold and dark aura spread out, and a fierce aura soared into the sky. Under the shocked gazes of everyone present, a peerlessly domineering and ferocious ancient lizard had actually appeared in the sky behind Chu Hen. It had sharp claws and tough scales, but unlike ordinary giant lizards, it had a pair of huge bat wings on its back. Subsequently, Chu Hen's arm pushed out, and the draining god's spear in his hand stabbed diagonally towards the sky. Boom! At the same time, the air waves trembled, and a powerful ice-cold spear light beam burst out, directly facing the giant halberd that was falling down. The crimson halberd and the black spear were like two divine rainbows descending from the sky, one above and one below, clashing head-on. Bang! Boom! Earth-shattering and heaven-shaking, divine lightning fused together. At the moment when the two collided, the entire sky darkened. Red and black light patterns spread out wantonly, and layers of surging waves spread out one after another. The water below stirred up monstrous waves, and the surrounding people of Mount Kunliu and the blood-refining hall were shaken by the violent aftermath. He actually blocked it? How could it be? Looking at the young figure who was still as firm as a rock under the storm-like power, everyone in Mount Kunliu was surprised. Gao Lang and Lu Fu of the blood-refining hall couldn't help but look at each other. The former narrowed his eyes and spat out a few words coldly. "It's that weapon." The fierce shock waves kept colliding towards Chu Hen and Nangong Hao. However, in the next second, Chu Hen moved and rushed forward at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, a sharp light appeared in Chu Hen's body again. He carried the draining god spear in his right hand, and then raised his left hand forward, slash. Swoosh. In an instant, a green long sword suddenly shot out like a beam of flowing light that traveled back thousands of years. It tore through the air and rushed towards the huge shadow in front. Blue ran sword. The people of Mount Kunliu and the blood-refining hall raised their eyelids, and their expressions changed. Hiss! In just a blink of an eye, the beam of bright green light directly pierced through the chest of the huge shadow. The huge shadow shook violently, and then the place that was pierced by the blue ran sword emitted a dazzling white light. The white light quickly expanded and burst. Subsequently, with a loud bang, the shadow that was comparable to a fiend god exploded from the middle, turning into light fragments that filled the sky. Among the flying crimson light, a young figure with a gloomy face was slightly embarrassed. His eyes were so angry that they were almost spitting fire. "This is your Grand Demon Slayer technique? Looks like you didn't practice it well." A mocking smile appeared on the corner of Chu Hen's mouth. He immediately turned into a beam of flowing light in the sky, and the long body of the dripping god spear was pointed straight at his opponent's throat. "It's over. Senior brother Nangong." The sharp sound of wind piercing was unusually ear-piercing. Nangong Bai's expression changed drastically, and in a hurry, he raised his hand and struck out with his palm. Demon Slayer palm. Bang! The palm force that was surging with true origin energy poured down, and it met the piercing cold spear. The moment the two collided, Nangong Bai's palm force was like tofu dregs, and it shattered into pieces. However, Nangong Bai's reaction speed was extremely fast, and he immediately used the counterforce to retreat. The distance between the two of them increased rapidly. Although Nangong Bai successfully blocked the fatal blow, the terrifying sharpness of the dripping god spear still caused a bloody hole to appear in his palm. Seeing that Nangong Bai was at a disadvantage, the blood-refining hall did not dare to drag on any longer. "Go and help Nangong Bai. I'll take care of this group of defeated soldiers," Gao Lang said to Lu Fu, who was beside him, in a low voice. Lu Fu smiled coldly. "That's exactly what I intend to do." Whoosh! As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Fu immediately turned into a remnant shadow and dashed out. Her speed was extremely fast, and her figure was like a ghost. The remnant shadow that she turned into split into two, and it was as if there were two shadow blades approaching menacingly. "Nangong Bai, you've disappointed us," Lu Fu said in a mocking tone. Nangong Bai's eyes darkened, and he shouted angrily, "Stop talking nonsense, kill him now!" Nangong Bai's hatred towards Chu Hen could be said to have multiplied over time. In the beginning, Nangong Bai did not intend to reveal his true identity so early. His target was the position of Mount Kunliu. This was also what the blood-refining hall hoped to see the most. The step-by-step plan was realized quietly. Nangong Bai could be said to be advancing step by step in Mount Kunliu. He was not worried that Lung Lingyan would compete with him for the position of sect master. Her talent and ability were indeed very strong, but after all, she was a woman. In terms of election advantages, Nangong Bai was obviously a little bit better. However, who would have thought that Chu Hen would come out of nowhere and directly disrupt all the plans of Nangong Bai and the blood-refining hall? The strength that Chu Hen gradually revealed constantly made Nangong Bai feel greatly threatened. Especially when he knew that Chu Hen had killed the demonic beast of death, Nangong Bai finally could not hide anymore. He also knew that the position of sect master was getting farther and farther away from him. Therefore, he might as well go all the way and eliminate all the elite disciples of Mount Kunliu. As long as all the experts of Mount Kunliu who came to the ancient Baron's heaven realm were killed here, how could Mount Kunliu, which was only guarded by the Void Temple Master, resist the attack of the Blood Refining Hall? After leaving the ancient Baron's heaven realm and the Blood Refining Hall conquered Mount Kunliu, he could still become the sect master. A sinister smile appeared on Nangong Bai's face. Now, after slaughtering the 300 elite disciples, he would pretend to be a defeated soldier and sneak back to Fish Stream. Then, he would cooperate with the people of the Blood Refining Hall. Then, his mission of hiding in Mount Kunliu for more than 10 years would be successfully completed. However, before that, he had to first get rid of this hateful bastard in front of him. As soon as they saw Lu Fu and Nangong Bai besieging Chu Hen, the people of Mount Kunliu could not help but be furious. "Junior brother Chu Hen, let us help you." Su Lang and Ling Tao stood up with their swords in their hands, and a strong aura burst out. However, before the two of them could make a move, Gao Lang sneered disdainfully. "You'd better take care of yourselves first. If nothing unexpected happens, you will all die before him." Ta! Then, Gao Lang put his palms together and made a strange gesture. A strong force surged out from his body, and the water below immediately surged up to the sky. Stone tribulation, great disaster boundary. Rumble. The next moment the earth shook and huge waves surged up to the sky. The waters below rapidly split apart, forming huge ravines and layers of water curtains. Following that, huge rock barriers rose from the waters in all directions, looking like huge stone bowls. In an instant, all the disciples of Mount Kunliu were surrounded by this huge stone bowl. The stone wall was more than 200 meters high and more than 2,000 meters in diameter. It directly enveloped the broken dam bridge and a large area of water on both sides. The only way out was to fly out from the sky. However, this thought was quickly extinguished. Numerous sharp and cold figures flew over from the horizon behind the stone wall barrier. They surrounded them from all sides, and like a flock of eagles, they completely sealed off all paths of retreat for the people of Mount Kunliu. What? Facing such an impenetrable siege from all sides, the people of Mount Kunliu clenched their fists and gritted their teeth. In this situation, no one could escape. Obviously, the Blood Refining Hall intended to kill all of them. Hee, thank you for coming. Then, Gao Lang spread his arms and laughed proudly. Then, let the massacre begin. Kill! A chaotic battle broke out once again. Many experts of the Blood Refining Hall, who were hiding in the surroundings, began to pounce on the people of Mount Kunliu. Even so, the people of Mount Kunliu had no intention of surrendering. Chapter 784. Boom! The intense battle continued unabated. A gigantic stone barrier that spanned across 2,000 meters of water trapped all the disciples of Mount Kunliu within it. Colorful airwaves and light patterns splashed and intersected in the sky. The sky changed color, the wind blew, and the clouds surged. The mighty power rippled, making the entire space seem like it was caught in a storm. In fact, the Blood Refining Hall did not send all their disciples to the battle. Some of them were waiting in the area between the dam and fish stream. What they needed to do was to wait there and kill any fish that slipped through the net that might escape from the dam area. This was a very important part of the Blood Refining Hall. The reason was simple. They could not let any information about Nangong Bai leak out. As long as all the disciples of Mount Kunliu were killed, Nangong Bai could still return to Fish Stream and enter the interior of Mount Kunliu again to coordinate with them from the inside. Nangong Bai was the most trusted person of Wenliang, the leader of Demon Slaying Hall. Finally, they could coordinate with them from the inside. The result was unimaginable. Therefore, it could be said that the blood-refining hall blocked all the evacuation routes of the people from Mount Kunliu in 3 layers. Even so, the people of Mount Kunliu were still losing ground. It was only a matter of time before they were completely annihilated. Boom! In the air, Chu Hen fought against Nangong Bai and Lu Fu alone. Perhaps in the eyes of others, it was a very strenuous task. However, in reality, it was the opposite. Chu Hen fought against the two with ease. He attacked more than he defended. The draining god spear in his hand was good at both attacking and defending. It was flexible and powerful. Bang! Nangong Bai could no longer defend against Chu Hen's attack. He was once again pushed away by Chu Hen's spear, and a bloody wound appeared on his left shoulder. His anger and impatience made him lose his usual calmness. He shouted at Lu Fu, "What are you doing? Kill him now!" Lu Fu frowned discontentedly. In fact, she was not stalling for time. Every move she made was full of killing intent. Even so, it was difficult for her to defeat Chu Hen in a short time. You do have some skills. Try this move of mine." A cold glint flashed in Lu Fu's eyes. Soon after, she transformed into an afterimage as she flew forward. When she was less than 20 meters away from Chu Hen, Lu Fu swiftly made her move. A dozen or so afterimages immediately separated from her body. More than a dozen phantoms were in different postures, each holding a shadow blade, surrounding Chu Hen from top to bottom. Such a scene was dazzling to the eyes. Everlasting Phantom, along with the cold voice, the dozen or so phantoms that were scattered around the area rushed toward Chu Hen at the same time. The rapid sounds of wind being cut were like the sound of shadow blades cutting through the air. However, at this moment, with Chu Hen as the center, 2 kinds of yin and yang qi, one black and one white, surged rapidly between heaven and earth. Yin and yang qi chased each other, immediately forming a Tai Chi yin-yang pattern under his feet. The Tai Chi yin-yang diagram spread out and instantly reached Nangong Bai's feet, who was dozens of meters away. In that instant, the space faintly distorted, as if he had fallen into an illusion. Before Nangong Ji could even react, a strong pulling force was pulling his body at a rapid speed. Greater teleportation technique. Chu Hen secretly shouted. Buzz, at this moment, Chu Hen and Nangong Bai were like 2 black and white dots in the Tai Chi yin-yang pattern, chasing each other as the space they were in immediately changed. In the next second, Nangong Bai was surrounded and attacked by more than a dozen phantoms. "It's me!" Nangong Bai's pupils shrank as he shouted in panic. The sudden change also caused Lu Fu to be shocked. In a moment of panic, she quickly retracted her attacks, and a dozen or so shadows with shadow blades in their hands shot back when they were only a few centimeters away from Nangong Ju. That was close. Nangong Bai was so frightened that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He had almost died in the hands of his own people. However, before he could heave a sigh of relief, a disdainful voice rang in his ears. "You've relaxed too early, Nangong. Senior brother, what?" Nangong Bai's expression changed drastically. Before he could react, a heavy cold spear swept toward him and ruthlessly smashed into his back. Bang! Dust flew in the air as a shockwave spread out. Nangong Bai felt as if he had been hit by a mountain. His body shook violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Fu, who could only help him, had just withdrawn her attack. She had used up all her energy, but she had not recovered yet. She could not stop Chu Hen in an instant, and could only watch helplessly from the side. The huge impact caused Nangong Bai to leap forward. However, in the next second, Chu Hen waved the draining god spear and spun it 360 degrees. The spear circled in front of Nangong Bai, and with a bang, the spear, which was emitting a dense black glow, once again ruthlessly swept across Nangong Bai's abdomen. Hua! Nangong Bai spat out another mouthful of blood. His body arched like a lobster, and he quickly retreated. Even though Nangong Bai had suffered 2 heavy blows from Chu Hen, he did not lose the ability to fight because he had the protection of the Great Devil Slayer technique. At the same time, Lu Fu, who had regained her composure, once again pounced toward Chu Hen's back, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Die! Humph! Chu Hen smiled disdainfully. He turned around and thrust his spear back. The draining god's spear, which was surrounded by a powerful black glow, emitted a loud whistling sound. Following that, a huge, sharp, black claw actually reached out from the glowing ripples at the tip of the spear. The ancient lizard dragon's sharp claws met the afterimage head-on with a boom. A piercingly cold gale burst like a balloon, and the afterimage was immediately sent flying. Soon after, it turned into Lu Fu's slightly battered figure. This guy? Gao Lang, who had killed 2 Mount Kunliu's disciples with a single palm strike, stared coldly at the battle in the sky with a gloomy gaze. He really did not expect Nangong Bai and Lu Fu to be unable to take down a mere Chu Hen. If this continued, the 2 of them might be killed by Chu Hen instead. Humph, then I'll deal with you first. Immediately, Gao Lang did not care about his reputation anymore. He immediately retreated from the chaotic battle between Mount Kunliu and the blood-refining hall, and rushed toward Chu Hen. Stop right there. Su Lang saw through Gao Lang's intention and hurriedly raised his sword to block him. In the eyes of the people from Mount Kunliu, Chu Hen was already under great pressure when he fought against 2 people alone. Now that he had to fight against 3 people alone, there was absolutely no way he could survive. Xing, the long sword in Su Lang's hand, let out a long soft sound, and a triangular sword beam slashed toward Gao Lang. Gao Lang sneered and retaliated with a palm strike. Trash, stay away from me! Buzz. In an instant, a dark golden palm print shot out, and an impact force that was comparable to a torrent came crashing down. At the same time that Su Lang's sword pillar's airwaves were crushed, the treasured sword in his hand was also shaken to the point it flew out of his hand. Following that, Gao Lang struck out with his palm once again, and the surging shockwave landed on Su Lang's body. The latter felt his internal organs shift, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body fell straight toward the water below, and with a splash, thousands of water splashed. Su Lang, Ling Tao, who was fighting with all his might, was shocked and angry. He saw Su Lang lying unconscious in the rolling waves, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Humph! How dare an ant compete with the sun and the moon? Gao Lang sneered disdainfully, and then flashed to the battle between Chu Hen, Nangong Bai, and Lu Fu. He stretched out one hand, and with a clench of his palm, a majestic aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas gushed out, gravitational space. The void trembled, and a strange force pounced toward Chu Hen. In the next instant, dark golden particles of light appeared in the space around Chu Hen. These particles of light were like dust particles floating in the air, and they caused one's vision to turn dim yellow. At the same time, Chu Hen suddenly felt an extremely powerful pressure enveloping his body. This invisible pressure was like gravity that had been magnified hundreds or thousands of times, and Chu Hen's movements clearly became slower. On the other hand, Nangong Bai and Lu Fu were not affected in the slightest. You can die without regrets now that the 3 of us are fighting together. Gao Lang sneered as he launched his attack. No matter if it was Gao Lang, Lu Fu, or Nangong Quan, they were all people with hearts higher than the heavens. If it was any other time, it would be impossible for the 3 of them to gang up on a single person. Especially since Chu Hen was younger than them in terms of experience and age. However, at this moment, Chu Hen was challenging 3 famous geniuses with just a spear. Chu Hen taking on 3 people on his own caused the pressure on the people from Mount Kunliu to lessen significantly. During the chaotic battle, the bridge behind the people from Mount Kunliu had already been split into 2, and there was still a broken section of the bridge on the other side. On a huge rock on the wall, 2 medical disciples were frantically trying to save Lung Lingyan. Lung Lingyan's face was pale, and her dress was stained red with blood. Her aura was extremely weak. At this moment, her long eyelashes fluttered lightly, and she slowly opened her eyes. There was a dazed look in her beautiful eyes. You're awake, you're awake. Senior Sister Lingyan, you're finally awake. The two medical disciples' tightly furrowed brows immediately relaxed. Under such circumstances, Lung Lingyan's awakening did not seem to have any effect on the overall situation. The chaotic scene quickly appeared in front of Lung Lingyan, and she immediately recalled what had happened before she fainted. What was going on? Logically speaking, the people from Mount Kunliu should have been wiped out a long time ago. Why were they still able to hold on for so long? What's going on? Where's Chu Hen? Lung Lingyan asked weakly. Over there, one of the medical disciples hurriedly pointed into the air. Senior Sister Lingyan, you don't know this, but junior brother Chu Hen almost killed that traitor Nangong by just now. Lung Lingyan's delicate body trembled slightly, and her lily-white hands clenched tightly. The scene in front of her was something that she could never have imagined. Chapter 785. Senior Sister Lingyan, you don't know, but junior brother Chu Hen almost killed that traitor Nangong Qian just now. The medical disciple beside her clenched his fists tightly as he spoke with righteous indignation. There was a hint of pity in his tone. Lung Lingyan's pale face changed again and again. She looked at the young figure in the sky who was fighting 1 against 3, and her gentle and beautiful eyes were filled with many complicated emotions. How could this be? Nangong Hao, Gao Lang, and Lu Fu were all at the 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm. Judging from the aura that Chu Hen was emitting, he was only at the 4th level of the Earth Profound Realm at most. This was no ordinary fighting against someone with a higher cultivation level. Chu Hen was too reckless. Lung Lingyan shook her head helplessly. Since Chu Hen was so strong, he should have used all his strength to fight his way out of the encirclement and return to Fish Stream to inform the Devil Slayer Palace Master to be on guard. However, Chu Hen chose the simplest and most direct method to fight against 3 people on his own. Was he really confident? Lung Lingyan stared at the 4 people who were fighting. Chu Hen held the dripping god dragon spine spear in his hand. The magnificent scene was like a dragon fighting against 3 pythons. Boom! Bang! The battle between the 4 people caused chaos in the sky. All kinds of surging energy waves surged out. Under the influence of Gao Lang's gravitational space, Chu Hen had to endure a gravity that was hundreds of times stronger than normal. His movements were clearly slower than before. Although his hands and feet were tied, Chu Hen did not show any obvious signs of defeat because of this. Hey, you're already at this stage. Why don't you just surrender and I'll leave your corpse intact? Gao Lang smiled coldly. While Chu Hen was fighting against Lu Fu, he quickly launched a fierce attack from behind. Sky-breaking fist. Buzz, layers of thick, dark golden light covered Gao Lang's fist. His opponent's arm suddenly looked like it was made of copper, and it exploded with a force that could break thousands of kilograms. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He turned around and thrust his spear back. The draining god spear, which was surrounded by a black cyclone, collided with the opponent's golden fist. Bang! Scattered true essence flew out, and a heavy force exploded outwards. Chu Hen borrowed this shockwave to quickly retreat. I can surrender without a fight, but I'll trade the lives of the 3 of you. Chu Hen replied coldly. You're courting death. As soon as he finished speaking, Gao Lang suddenly stretched out his arms. 2 powerful auras spread out from his palms at the same time. Buzz, in the next moment, thick yellow sand rose on both sides of Chu Hen. The dusky yellow sand was like dust filling the sky. Following that, the space twisted and swayed, and 2 huge rocks that were dozens of meters tall appeared on either side of Chu Hen. Gao Lang retracted his palms once more and said angrily in a deep voice, "Close." Whoosh! Along with the overlapping sounds of rapid air waves, the 2 rocks rapidly flew towards Chu Hen, who was in the middle. There was an air of wanting to shatter Chu Hen's body into pieces. Chu Hen's eyebrows slightly furrowed. He immediately used the Alcade body technique, and with his fastest speed, He turned into a silver arc of light and flashed forward. Boom! The two huge rocks heavily collided with each other and shattered in the air. Dodging the pincer attack of the two rocks, a dozen or so blurry afterimages appeared in all directions of Chu Hen like ghosts. An ice-cold and sharp murderous aura swept over. More than a dozen afterimages simultaneously transformed into flowing light shadow blades, which were directly named after him. Gao Lang and Lu Fu's cooperation was smooth, and they didn't give Chu Hen any way out. However, just as the flowing light blades were about to reach him, Chu Hen flipped his left palm, and a dozen or so dazzling green lights flew out. Like a divine rainbow after the rain, they intercepted the flowing light blades. Bang! Boom! The powerful and piercingly cold sword aura shook the surroundings, and the flowing light blades were pierced through by the green sword aura. Soon after, the green sword aura flowed in the air, and then converged together to form a dazzling holy sword. Humph, the blue sky sword again. It seems that you only know these few moves. A thunder-like furious voice came from above Chu Hen's head. What followed closely was the unique ruthless killing intent that originated from the great demon slaying technique. The hearts of everyone present were all startled. Chu Hen raised his cold eyes slightly, and saw Nangong Bai charging down from above. His entire body was surging with an incomparably powerful scarlet light, and his fierce eyes were like those of a wild beast. Buzz! Buzz! Along with the rapid and terrifying energy fluctuations, Nangong Bai's palm intersected with scarlet light, and a thick halberd appeared in his hand. The halberd was covered in a scorching scarlet vortex, and its power was shocking and unstoppable. You can't escape. Ha 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 ha. The sinister smile on Nangong Bai's face was especially sinister. He was extremely fast, and instantly appeared in front of Chu Hen, the halberd in his hand thrusting towards his opponent's heart with the force of lightning. Die! Hiss! An incomparably dazzling light blossomed in the sky, and a scarlet rain of blood danced in the air. Everyone below instantly widened their eyes, and shock appeared on their faces. Lung Lingyan's beautiful eyes widened, and her hands involuntarily clenched into fists. Her lightly pursed lips trembled slightly, filled with surprise and shock. The flow of time seemed to have slowed down. The intense pain that originated from his chest spread to every nerve in his body. The smile on Nangong Bai's face had long since frozen, and was replaced by thick disbelief. The scene that appeared in front of everyone caught them off guard. Chu Hen stood proudly in the air like a boulder, and the draining spirit spear in his hand stabbed upwards. The ice-cold spear tip had already been sent out, and directly pierced through Nangong Bai's chest. Meanwhile, the halberd in Nangong Bai's hand stabbed the air beside Chu Hen's left shoulder. How is this possible? Nangong Bai's eyes widened, and fresh blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His pupils violently shrank, and all he saw was a pair of bewitching purple eyes on Chu Hen's handsome face. Within those purple eyes, 4 black dots slowly rotated in a clockwise direction like an infinite universe. They could not be seen through, could not be grasped, and the only signal they sent out was destruction. It's an illusion. Nangong Bai's body trembled, and like a salted fish, he was propped up by the spear in Chu Hen's hand. Chu Hen looked at his opponent, and the corners of his mouth curled into a frivolous smile. Correct. Hiss. The ice-cold spear was pulled out, and Nangong Bai's body instantly became like a dying bird that had lost its support, and a scarlet bloody hole appeared in his chest. Gao Lang and Lu Fu's expressions darkened, and in that split second of shock, Gao Lang did not say a word, and charged in front of Chu Hen as fast as he could, his hands continuously forming a series of hand seals. Infinite supergravity. Buzz! A dark golden light enveloped Chu Hen's entire body like a raging wave, and an even more astonishing gravitational force came crashing down on him. The inner energy in Gao Lang's body was rapidly depleting, and the gravitational force that Chu Hen had to endure increased exponentially, as if he was stuck in a quagmire. I never thought that you would be able to force us to such a state." At that moment Gao Lang's face was filled with caution and murderous intent that had never appeared before. After personally witnessing Chu Hen thrust the draining god's spear into Nangong Bai's chest, Gao Lang no longer held back. This infinite gravity technique could continuously increase the gravitational force of the Earth, and it only ended after exhausting the last bit of inner energy in his body. "Thank you for the compliment." Chu Hen smiled indifferently, and the draining god's spear shot out, creating a piercingly cold wave of air as it pierced towards Nangong Bai's throat. Gao Lang's eyes narrowed, and he reached out with his right hand to meet the tip of the spear. However, just as the sharp tip of the spear was about to collide with his palm, Gao Lang suddenly flipped his palm over, and his arm moved as fast as lightning around the tip of the spear and firmly grasped the spear's body. Gao Lang's arm shone with a dark luster, as if it was made of molten copper. He held the draining god's spear tightly, and Chu Hen was unable to move. A cold and sinister smile blossomed on his face. "Heh, looks like you won't be able to escape from me in the end. I'm sorry to tell you that today's battle has come to an end, Lu Fu." Gao Lang shouted loudly. "I've been waiting for a long time," Lu Fu shouted coldly. In the next moment, an endless darkness began to spread towards Chu Hen, and the entire sky darkened. Lu Fu's figure moved, and a series of cold and sharp black shadows flashed across the sky. In an instant, nearly 100 cold shadows appeared in the sky. Not good. Chu Hen is in danger. The appearance of this scene immediately caused the people of Mount Kunliu to turn pale with fright. Lung Lingyan frowned, and she subconsciously stood up. She wanted to go and help, but the injury in her body caused her a sharp pain, and she almost fainted again. A matter of life and death. His momentum was like thunder. An endless murderous aura filled the air. However, Chu Hen smiled, and he turned a blind eye to the nearly 100 shadows that were charging towards him. His eyelids suddenly lifted, and he stared at Gao Lang in front of him with extreme disdain. "I believe that no one has ever told you not to touch your opponent's weapon." The indifferent voice was like a sharp knife that pierced Gao Lang's eardrums. The latter's heart suddenly trembled, and his pupils shrank violently. A thick aura of danger instantly assaulted him. Zing, accompanied by a sharp sound, the draining divine dragon's pine spear in Chu Hen's hand suddenly erupted with a different kind of dazzling silver light. Everyone was shocked, and Gao Lang hurriedly loosened his grip. But in the next second, the sound of a sharp weapon slicing through flesh rang out in the sky. A series of blood splattered in the air. Gao Lang's face immediately turned pale, and endless pain spread throughout his body. Half of his palm was neatly cut off. What? In an instant, everyone's hearts were in turmoil, and their minds felt like they had been struck by lightning. They saw that the draining divine spear in Chu Hen's hand had disappeared, and in its place was a light silver blade that was as straight as a sword. The silver blade was shining brightly, as if it had been tempered in the essence of the 9 heavenly stars, and emitted an unparalleled sharpness. Fear, anger, and resentment were written all over Gao Lang's face. In his shock and anger, he did not care about his injuries, and hurriedly retreated. Right now, it was more important to save his life. Chu Hen faintly shook his head. "Have a safe trip, I won't send you off." Swoosh! In the next moment, a green sword shadow appeared out of nowhere, streaked across the sky, and swiftly slashed towards Gao Lang. No, bang! Chapter 786. Bang! Looking at the shocking scene of blood flying above the void, all the disciples of Mount Kunliu and Blood Refining Hall widened their eyes and fell into deep shock. How could it be? If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would believe it was true. In a split second, Chu Hen stabbed Nangong Bai with his spear and killed Gao Lang. 1 against 3, he defeated 2 in a row in an instant. "How dare you kill him? I'm going to tear you into pieces." Voices full of shock and anger came from all directions. Numerous shadows tore through the air and slashed at Chu Hen. However, as soon as Gao Lang died, the gravitational space immediately collapsed. It was as if Chu Hen had unloaded a heavy burden of 10,000 kilograms in an instant. The feeling of relaxation that came with that instant greatly increased his sharpness. He waved the Tianai blade, and a bright blade aura, like a lightning-flowing shadow, welcomed the ice-cold shadow blade. Bang! Sparks flew everywhere. Chu Hen quickly pulled his body back to defend. His gaze was a little surprised as he looked at the 100 or so afterimages that were flashing around him. This must be the strongest form of the opponent. Lu Fu's real body was hidden in one of the shadows. Moreover, the opponent's technique had a strong concealment ability. The real body could switch back and forth among the other shadows. Even if he found the opponent's position with the power of the demon eye, he could still move to another place in a very short time. Since you like to hide, I'll make it so that you have nowhere to hide. Facing the 100 shadows that were coming at him aggressively and full of killing intent, Chu Hen moved his body and directly leaped up to a higher area in the void. The afterimages chased after him relentlessly, taking advantage of the momentum. Streaks of powerful afterimages of flowing lights were like flowing blades that traced back thousands of years of time. It seemed as if they would not rest until they killed Chu Hen. Humph! However, at this moment, Chu Hen slowly raised the Tianai saber in his hand. Thousands of dazzling rays of light bloomed from the blade. A beam of saber radiance, like a pillar of the sky, shot out along the blade, pierced through the clouds, and shook the mountains and rivers. What's that? Everyone was shocked again and again, especially the group from Mount Kuan-Lu. They really couldn't understand how Chu Hen's strength had increased so much in less than 10 days. Especially the long spear he had just used, as well as the light saber in front of him. Where did such powerful treasures come from? Roar. Immediately after, a peerlessly domineering roar of a tiger that looked down upon the mountains and rivers reverberated in all directions. Everyone's heartstrings trembled. In the sky above the 9th heaven, thunder clouds rolled, and endless silver light pierced through the clouds. Chu Hen was like a divine light in his palm, and it was as if he wanted to break the sky. Kill! Buzz! The space trembled heavily. Chu Hen looked down and brandished his Tianai blade. In an instant, a huge and majestic white saber-toothed tiger descended from the sky. It charged out of the thousands of rays of light and pounced towards the nearly 100 shadows below. A terrifying ferocious aura surged down with a crushing force. All the darkness that permeated the sky was expelled. This saber-toothed tiger was like a divine beast of light from ancient times. Wherever it went, it was unstoppable. Buzz! Endless rays of light whizzed through the air like thousands of light arrows. One after another, the black shadows disappeared under the intense light. When the last shadow was destroyed, Lu Fu had nowhere to hide and was directly exposed under the intense light. Roar! The ferocious aura that was comparable to a mountain crashed onto Lu Fu's body. Dazzling white light shone on her face, and no fear could be seen in her eyes. The saber-toothed tiger continued its charge, and like a huge pillar of light, it fiercely smashed into the waters below. Following that, a loud boom sound instantly shook the mountains and rivers. Huge waves soared into the sky, and the majestic water body sank into the ground in an extremely shocking manner. Majestic shock waves swept out in all directions, and the huge rock barrier that trapped the disciples of Mount Kuan-Lu was directly shattered into smithereens. Everyone on both sides retreated rapidly. The violent wind and rain swept the earth, and in the blink of an eye, the entire dam and river embankment disappeared. Shock. Absolute shock. Everyone from Mount Kuan-Lu and the blood refining hall was stunned. They couldn't imagine that the power of Chu Hen's saber was so terrifying. However, Lu Fu's figure had already disappeared. Between heaven and earth, no trace of her breath could be felt. The three top geniuses were all defeated by Chu Hen. All the disciples of the blood refining hall were completely stunned. Obviously, they had an absolute advantage, but Chu Hen alone turned the tide and saved the overall situation. The three top geniuses, Nangong Ku, Gao Lang, and Lu Fu, were all defeated. The loss of the blood refining hall was immeasurable. Go! Chu Hen held the Tianai saber diagonally, and his body was surrounded by light patterns, like the commander of 3 armies. He pointed to the direction where they came from and said, "Kill all the way back." Yes. The morale of everyone in Mount Kunlu was greatly boosted, and their decadence was swept away. They launched the fiercest counterattack against the masters of the blood refining hall. After the hope was extinguished, there was light again. They lost Nangong Ku, but gained Chu Hen. It was absolutely not a loss. Kill. Blood rained. The saber radiance, the sword radiance, and the spear radiance were like lightning. The good situation of the blood refining hall was in a mess in the blink of an eye. Without the command of Gao Lang and Lu Fu, the people of the blood refining hall were in a mess like a pot of ants, and it was difficult for them to keep calm. Chu Hen wielded his saber to kill a bloody way, and the others followed him closely. The mountains and forests were flattened, and the blood kept flowing all the way. Boom! However, at this moment, a monstrous and horrible breath suddenly came from the rear area. "Little bastard, do you still want to leave here alive today? I'm going to pull out your tendons and peel off your skin to vent my hatred." The majestic momentum was like a thunderclap. All the people in Mount Kunlu were shaken to the point that their qi and blood were boiling, and they could not stand steadily. Chu Hen similarly turned pale with fright. He did not need to think to know who had come. Rumble! The raging genuine elemental energy rolled over with an overwhelming momentum. Chu Hen's face changed. Without saying anything, he hurriedly flashed to the last area of the people in Mount Kunlu. He waved his Tianai saber, and a saber radiance with a length of hundreds of meters appeared, chopping toward the majestic genuine elemental energy wave. Bang! The collision of the two was like a landslide and a tsunami, and the sky shook. In merely an instant, the heaven's execution blade light that Chu Hen had unleashed was shattered into pieces. A boundless force surged forth, causing Chu Hen's body to tremble. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. "You're just an ant. How dare you bare your fangs and brandish your claws in front of me?" Then, in the soaring airwaves, a burly middle-aged figure flew over. He was none other than Ho Lai, one of the 3 leaders of the blood refining hall. The appearance of Ho Lai once again put the people in Mount Kunlu in a huge dilemma. No matter how strong Chu Hen was, he was absolutely no match for Ho Lai. There was no doubt about it. There was no need to think about it. "You guys go first." Chu Hen covered his chest with one hand and held the Tianai saber with the other. He shouted at Lung Lingyan, Ling Tao and the others behind him with a determined look. Lung Lingyan shook her head and replied helplessly, "It's you who should go." Chu Hen's eyebrows slightly wrinkled, his face revealing a shocked expression. Lung Lingyan knew very well that in this situation, only Chu Hen had a chance to leave, and this opportunity was built on the basis of sacrificing all his companions. "That's right. Junior brother Chu Hen, leave quickly. We'll cover your retreat." Everyone had already taken on the stance of risking their lives. This could buy some time for Chu Hen. However, Ho Lai sneered. He clenched his 5 fingers, and the momentum of a volcanic eruption broke out. "Today, no one can leave. Mount Tai collapses. Buzz!" Ho Lai shouted, and one of his hands condensed in the void. Then, a giant palm descended from the sky and blasted straight at the people of Mount Kunlu. Chu Hen was quick to react, and he summoned the blue Rand sword as fast as he could. At the same time, his eyes turned cold, and purple light surged in his pupils. At the same time, a strange black light spread out of his body. The power of chaos and the power of the demon eyes were completely released. Chu Hen knew very well that when facing Ho Lai, being careless was equivalent to courting death. One sword deity, myriad sword tribulation. Swoosh, swoosh, in an instant, the blue Rand sword swept out rapidly, and its entire body was intertwined with black and purple light patterns. In the process of moving, the blue-ran sword divided into two, 2 into 4, 4 into 8. In an instant, it turned into hundreds of sword shadows, and the densely packed sword shadows converged into a sword river that clashed with the giant palm. Boom! Bang! The continuous heavy explosions were like the crisscrossing of thunder. The terrifying palm force and the powerful sword river constantly collided, and the sky seemed to welcome fireworks. Layers upon layers of aftershocks swept across the world. Blue-ran sword. Ho-Lai's face was gloomy and cold. "It's you, you hateful thing." Feeling the ferocious aura from Ho-Lai, Chu-Hen was secretly shocked. A casual attack from Ho-Lai required him to use all his strength. This kind of gap was really too big. If it wasn't for Ho-Lai and demon-slaying palace master Wen Liang being injured before, with Ho-Lai's peak condition, it would be extremely difficult for him to receive a single palm strike from Ho-Lai. But even so, Chu-Hen could at most last 2 or 3 rounds against Ho-Lai. What should I do? Chapter 787. The undulating airwaves surged in all directions. With the arrival of Ho-Lai, one of the most authoritative figures of the Blood Refining Hall, the people of the Blood Refining Hall regained their composure. On the other hand, the people of Mount Kunliu had their hopes extinguished once again. Their expressions were extremely grim as they clenched their teeth. Their gazes were all focused on the young figure at the forefront. Chu-Hen and Ho-Lai were confronting each other. Even though the latter's aura was as strong as a mountain, Ho-Lai's eyebrows were filled with murderous intent. He was both angry and surprised. He saw anxiety, seriousness, and some panic on Chu-Hen's face, but there was no fear. This really surprised Ho-Lai. A mere disciple of Mount Kunliu was standing in front of him without the slightest bit of fear. Such courage was something that not many people in the entire Victory East region could do. Of course, what made Ho-Lai even more furious was the huge change that happened today. With Nangong Bai, Gao Lang, and Lu Fu's strength, they would be able to take down these people from Mount Kunliu in an instant. Ho-Lai, who had been quietly waiting for good news, was extremely furious when he heard the news that Nangong Bai, Gao Lang, and Lu Fu had been defeated. What awaited the group from Mount Kunliu was Ho-Lai's most terrifying fury. Buzz. Ho-Lai's gaze turned cold. Following that, he condensed a single palm, and a wave of aura surged out from his body. The space trembled, and the ground below also deeply caved in. At the same time, the dead branches and leaves on the ground immediately turned into hidden darts that could take people's lives. Along with the powerful wave of air, they all attacked Chu-Hen. Chu-Hen's pupils shrank and a look of determination flashed across his eyes. Swoosh, then, Chu-Hen advanced instead of retreating. He held the Tianai saber in his hand and deflected the flying darts and stones. Ding ding ding, the flying stones and leaves hit the Tianai saber and produced a series of crisp sounds. Chu-Hen's eyes were deep and his saber light was like a shadow, moving against the torrent. Everyone from Mount Kunliu wanted to step forward to help, but they discovered that they couldn't even keep up with Chu-Hen's footstep. Chu-Hen was like a swallow returning to its nest. His movements were extremely nimble as he repeatedly dodged the flying stones and falling leaves that pounced at him. Then, he charged at Ho-Lai who was in front of him. Everyone was surprised by Chu-Hen's behavior. It was far from enough to say that the other party was courageous and insightful. This could already be considered as someone who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Who was Ho-Lai? He was one of the most powerful people in the Blood Refining Hall, a genuine expert in the sky-profound realm. A mere Chu-Hen was simply an ant in front of the other party, Chi-Chi. Along with the manic interweaving of thunder and lightning, the sharp Tianai blade rapidly pulsated with the concentrated power of dark lightning. The Tianai blade in Chu-Hen's hand was like a divine radiance, directly stabbing towards Ho-Lai's throat in a head-on manner. Kill! Chu-Hen shouted, the veins on his arms bulging. Humph! Looking at the ferocious young man in front of him, Ho-Lai's face showed a disdainful and contemptuous smile. When the tip of the Tianai saber was less than 5 centimeters away from Chu Hen's throat, Ho Lai raised his hand and punched on Chu Hen's chest. Chu Hen couldn't even catch Ho Lai's movement. He only saw a residual shadow passing by. Then, he felt a pain in his chest. Then, he fell straight from the sky and heavily hit the ground, raising a cloud of dust. "That's all you've got? Stupid!" Ho Lai sneered in a low voice. As soon as he finished his words, he directly turned into a streamer and rushed straight at Chu Hen. Chu Hen's face changed. Regardless of the surging qi and blood in his body, he quickly turned over and stood up, bouncing away quickly. The next moment, with a deafening sound of bang, the ground exploded, the rubble splashed, and the ground sank violently. Countless cracks spread rapidly. The thick stone and soil collapsed layer by layer, breaking inch by inch. The air billows and dust filled the air in all directions, and a huge pit appeared in front of everyone's horrified eyes. It was on a completely different level. Everyone on Mount Kuan-Lu was alarmed and their palms were sweating. "Senior Sister Lingyan, what should we do?" a disciple asked anxiously. However, at this time, Lung Lingyan was also helpless. Not to mention that she was seriously injured. Even if she was at her peak, she wouldn't dare to act rashly in front of Ho Lai. Rumble! Rubble rolled, crushing the surrounding jungle vegetation. Ho Lai stood in the center of the pit, his clothes neat and clean, without a trace of dust on his body. As for Chu Hen, he was half squatting on the ground. Although he didn't have any obvious injuries, he looked very miserable, with many parts of his body damaged. Chu Hen's hand tightened, and he tightened his grip on the hilt of the saber. A beam of black lightning darted up the saber. Then, Chu Hen stood up, pushed off with one leg, and rushed out again. Chi. The Tianai saber, covered in the fierce power of dark lightning, slashed horizontally at his opponent's neck. Ho Lai raised his arm unhurriedly and easily clasped his opponent's wrist. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He turned sideways and lifted his leg to sweep at Ho Lai's head. Although his speed was fast and his movements were nimble, in Ho Lai's eyes, Chu Hen was full of openings. "You can get lost, bang!" Not waiting for Chu Hen's attack to be effective, Ho Lai's foot landed on Chu Hen's chest. A ring of purple and black light exploded, and Chu Hen was once again sent flying. His continuous attacks seemed to have no effect, and he couldn't even get close to Ho Lai. "It's over." Ho Lai raised his hand and slashed out a palm blade. The powerful palm blade went all the way, and wherever it went, a wide gully was created on the ground. Chu Hen's expression turned slightly cold. However, just as the palm blade was about to reach him, he leaped up into the air and dodged the attack. He still had the strength to dodge? On Mount Kunliu, everyone from the blood refining hall was stunned. After being attacked by Ho Lai at close range twice in a row, an ordinary person would have been unable to get up. However, Chu Hen persisted with his physical strength that was far beyond that of an ordinary person. The killing intent in Ho Lai's heart rose again. No matter what, this man couldn't be left alive. At the same time, Chu Hen's body abruptly released a dense purple light. Ho Lai's pupils slightly shrank, and in the next instant, the surrounding space immediately sank into a strange state of distortion. Accompanied by a bone-chilling cold current, a purple flame that soared into the sky filled the air. Boom! The earth-shattering purple demonic flame surged from all directions and directly enveloped Ho Lai. The Nirvana demonic flame spread extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it spread to an area with a radius of 1,000 feet. Ho Lai was completely surrounded by the purple flame, as if he was in the center of a storm. Even so, Ho Lai's face was still full of disdain. What followed was an amazingly strong sword momentum. Ho Lai was slightly shocked. He saw the flame wave in front of him quickly split from the middle, and a huge green sword shadow attacked from the front. The wind was rising, the clouds were surging, the airwaves were monstrous, and the unparalleled power completely crushed. The huge green sword shadow tore the air apart, broke everything, and the terrifying lethality was unstoppable. Everyone from the blood-refining hall and Mount Kunliu widened their eyes. They had to admit that Chu Hen's response was really brilliant. The purple flame was just a camouflage, and the real killing move was yet to come. No one present might be able to bear the power of this sword, but Ho Lai didn't even bother to lift his eyelids. He directly raised his right palm and faced the tip of the huge sword head-on. Boom! Like a meteorite colliding with a star, the mountains collapsed, the earth cracked, and the mountains shook. In an instant, the terrifying sword momentum was immediately suppressed and could no longer move forward. Too weak! Ho Lai shouted in a deep voice. Purng! With an explosive sound, the huge green sword shadow shattered inch by inch, like a collapsing stone pillar, completely shattering into pieces. Hiss! Everyone from Mount Kunliu gasped. Ho Lai's power was so strong that it was difficult to resist. Even such a powerful killing move of Chu Hen couldn't do anything to him. Give up. You're too weak. Ho Lai sneered as if he was sentencing Chu Hen to death. However, at this moment, in the wanton power light pattern, a swift and fierce figure directly passed through the sword light phantoms and rushed to the front of Ho Lai at the fastest speed. Don't be happy too early, the slightly violent voice once again made everyone's heart tremble. Swoosh! With a sound, the figure pounced on Ho Lai like a leopard. He stretched out his left hand, and a dazzling starlight burst out from his body. What was reflected in Ho Lai's eyes was astonishingly a pair of bewitching purple pupils. Without waiting for the former to react, 7 stars suddenly floated on Chu Hen's palm. 4 of the stars were as bright as stars. I haven't admitted defeat yet. Controlling the light in the sky, it was dazzling. Chu Hen seemed to be controlling a bright star. Endless dazzling light bloomed, and a terrifying power surged down, blasting towards Ho Lai in front of him. Star Soul Quadruple Critical Strike. Bang! An unprecedented violent power spread in the area between Chu Hen and Ho Lai in an instant. The raging starlight pillar rushed to the sky, and the ground cracked, sinking hundreds of feet deep and spanning a few miles. Layers of rocks were crushed into powder, and the grass and trees were reduced to dust. The power of the fusion of 4 star soul pearls was concentrated at one point, and it was enough to destroy heaven and earth, and destroy mountains and rivers. Everyone from Blood Refining Hall and Mount Kunliu was shaken to the point that they kept retreating, and Chu Hen was also shaken out. He was dragged on the ground for hundreds of meters before he could stop. At this moment, everyone's eyes widened in shock. Everyone's eyes swept to where Ho Lai was. The other party was still standing in the same place like a rock, without moving half a step. What? This? Astonishment covered everyone's face. At this moment, Ho Lai's face was gloomy and pale. The restless true energy floated outside his body, and his breath obviously became more rapid. The blood in his body was boiling, and his internal organs were aching. His momentum was obviously weakened. Ho Lai had been hit by Wen Liang's heart-destroying palm, and his injury had not yet healed. Just now, Chu Hen's super-powerful critical strike directly triggered the other party's injury. This was beyond Ho Lai's expectation, and even more so, no one present dared to imagine. Anger was written all over his face. Ho Lai fiercely stared at Chu Hen, who staggered to get up. For the first time, a chill rose in his heart. This young man was too unsettling. If he didn't die today, he would become a disaster in the future. Kill him. Kill everyone. Ho Lai roared. Yes. Everyone from Blood Refining Hall said nothing and immediately launched a fierce attack. However, just as he finished speaking, a vast and mighty force of rolling thunder swept over from the sky in the direction of the fish water stream. The pressure was comparable to the impact of a flood, sweeping all the way down. Boom! With a loud sound, the wind scattered the clouds, and the astral wind raged. A domineering and powerful figure descended from the sky, and then blocked in front of Chu Hen. You've done well. Leave the rest to me. The momentum was like thunder, and it gave people a sense of magnanimity in its majesty. Chapter 788. You've done a good job. Leave the rest to me. The extremely dignified voice was as coarse as thunder. Looking at the tall and sturdy figure standing in front of Chu Hen, excitement instantly appeared in the eyes of all the disciples of Mount Kunliu. Meanwhile, Chu Hen felt relieved from the bottom of his heart. He shook his head and chuckled. You've finally arrived. My task is completed. Hearing that, Ho Lai, the leader of the blood refining hall, couldn't help but tremble in his heart. Suddenly, he was overwhelmed with shock. He seemed to find that he had fallen into Chu Hen's trap. The way Chu Hen risked his life to fight with Ho Lai earlier did not seem to be because Ho Lai did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Everything Chu Hen did was to trigger the injuries in Ho Lai's body and wait for the arrival of the Devil Slaughter Palace Master, Wen Liang. This was a gamble. Undoubtedly, Chu Hen made the right bet. At this moment, the chill in Ho Lai's heart was more intense. This young man in his 20s was much more terrifying than he had imagined. Boom! Soon after, a wave of murderous aura poured down. Numerous figures with powerful auras charged over from the direction of Fish Water Stream. We're here! Senior Sister Lingyan, Junior Brother Chu Hen, sorry to keep you waiting. Kill! Without any superfluous words, the mighty masters of Mount Kunliu pierced into the interior of the blood refining hall like a sharp sword. The killing intent soared like a hot knife through butter. Many terrifying forces surged over with overwhelming momentum. All the disciples of the blood refining hall had no time to defend. They were all shocked and hurriedly started to resist. Looking at the people who came to rescue them, the people of Mount Kunliu, who were besieged by the people of the blood refining hall, were all excited. They're all here, haha. Senior Sister Lingyan, we're all saved. Lung Lingyan was also relieved. She looked back at the young figure who was in a mess with blood stains on his face. She couldn't help but feel touched. When Liang and Ho Lai's confrontation once again caused air waves to rise and fill the air. The center of the space between the two of them immediately fell into a rhythm. When Liang coldly stared at Ho Lai, his voice reverberating like thunder. Now your opponent is me, humph. Ho Lai sneered, his aura burning like fire. Come. Boom. As soon as they finished speaking, the two of them soared into the sky as a monstrous aura akin to a tsunami erupted from their bodies. In an instant, the sky turned dark and the 9 heavens lost their color. Layers upon layers of dark clouds shrouded the sky as a huge region was instantly plunged into a violent storm. When Liang and Ho Lai's figures were directly enveloped by an enormous tornado formed from the convergence of true Yuan power. Boom! Bang! Continuous heavy explosions reverberated in the void, like volcanoes, like falling stars. It was earth-shattering, shaking mountains and rivers. The battle between the two top experts of the sky-profound realm flattened the mountains, reversed the rivers, and crushed the forests and vegetation into fine powder. Chu Hen, who was below, raised his head to look at the chaotic sky. His expression was slightly solemn, but he was even more amazed. The earth-profound realm and the sky-profound realm could not be compared on the same level. Such a power was truly formidable. Rumble, suddenly, accompanied by the extremely powerful aura of thousands upon thousands of men and horses slaughtering each other, a tyrannical aura that could crush the entire battlefield spread out in all directions. Under the sky, an enormous phantom figure that was 1,000 meters tall had astonishingly appeared. The illusory figure had a tall and slender body, with 4 sharp and long limbs. It wore a triangular helmet on its head. Everyone's hearts trembled. This illusory figure had appeared during the intense battle between Chu Hen and Nangong Qian. However, the might emitted by the two of them was as different as heaven and earth. Woo! The enormous phantom let out a howl that sounded like the wail of a ghost. It raised both of its arms high up, and layers of space distorted between its palms. Streams of vigorous scarlet light converged to form a giant halberd, demon slayer slash. Bang! It was earth-shattering, and its power pierced through the galaxy. Under countless horrified gazes, the phantom directly pierced the giant halberd into the incomparably chaotic true energy storm in front of it. In an instant, the wind raged between heaven and earth, and the true energy swept in all directions. The incomparably majestic and monstrous power detonated the void. In the particularly chaotic true energy storm, two figures once again appeared in everyone's sight. When Liang was still arrogant and awe-inspiring. His pair of cold eyes were like the god of thunder, full of fury. However, Ho Lai's breath was weak and his face was pale. Streaks of blood constantly flowed down the corners of his mouth. It was obvious. Ho Lai was defeated. At this moment, the hearts of all the people of the blood-refining hall fell to the bottom. They all knew very well what this meant, ahem. Ho Lai covered his chest with one hand and his eyes were a little weak. He said meaningfully, "After so many years of fighting, you finally won. I just want to die under your strongest blow, as you wish." Buzz, immediately, the huge phantom suspended above the void once again had an imposing manner. It raised the trident in its hand high, and spiral-shaped cyclones lingered around the body of the halberd and rotated rapidly, emitting a momentum that could break the sky. However, just as when Liang was accumulating his strength, the powerlessness on Ho Lai's face suddenly turned into strong unwillingness and determination. Swoosh! In the next moment, Ho Lai suddenly rushed out, and actually swept towards a young figure in the area below at an extremely fast speed. The opponent's target was none other than Chu Hen. Oh no! All the people of Mount Kunliu were shocked. "Chu Hen, be careful!" Lung Lingyan couldn't help but exclaim. No one expected that Ho Lai would attack Chu Hen at the last moment. "For the future of the blood-refining hall, I can't let you live." Ho Lai's eyes were full of determination, and the powerful true energy gathered and beat rapidly in his palm. Chu Hen's pupils shrank slightly. In his current state, there was no way to avoid the coming fatal blow. At this critical moment, the flow of time seemed to slow down. Just when the distance between the two was less than 10 meters, a red halberd, like a divine punishment from heaven, slashed down vertically towards Ho Lai's head. What? Ho Lai was shocked, and his face changed dramatically. Endless panic surged in his eyes. No, boom! The heavy shockwave was like a thunderbolt. The peerlessly imposing scarlet halberd landed on Ho Lai's body with an endless destructive shockwave. With a hurried and short-lived roar, Ho Lai's figure directly turned into ashes and disappeared without a trace. Bang! The mighty aftermath swept out in all directions, and a large area of the ground was deeply sunken. All kinds of stones flew into the sky and splashed everywhere. Chu Hen, who was closest to the target, was blasted out again. The terrible power shook his chi and blood, and his internal organs trembled. He almost fainted. Just at that moment, a nimble figure that was as swift as a swallow quietly flashed to his side and brought Chu Hen into her arms. Chu Hen's heart was slightly startled. What entered his eyes was a beautiful face that was like a lotus flower coming out of the water. Swoosh! Subsequently, Lung Lingyan moved and brought Chu Hen back to the waist of a broken peak. When the two of them landed, Chu Hen was not seriously injured. Instead, Lung Lingyan's delicate body trembled, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. "Senior Sister Ling, you?" Chu Hen's expression changed slightly. He suddenly remembered that Lung Lingyan had been hit by Nangong Hao's heart destruction palm earlier, and she was still in a severely injured state. Lung Lingyan shook her head slightly, and her breathing was erratic. "I'm fine." Seeing this, Chu Hen could not help but feel a little warm in his heart, and he was slightly grateful. At the same time, the Demon Slayer Palace Master, Wen Liang, stood proudly in the sky like an overlord who controlled all directions. "Humph, after fighting for so many years, how can I not know you, Ho Lai?" Wen Liang smiled coldly. Then, He raised his hand and waved. He looked at the defeated experts of the blood refining hall and said, "It's time for us to counterattack. Kill, kill." The wind was howling and blood rained down. Ho Lai's death brought an absolutely devastating blow to the people of the blood refining hall. They were utterly defeated and fled in all directions. The people of Mount Kuan-Lu counterattacked, and blood was slaughtered for dozens of miles. Chapter 789. The cold wind blew gently and chilled their faces. After the fierce battle, Mount Kunlun welcomed the first rare peace since they came to the ancient desolate heaven domain. At the same time, there was also the relaxation and joy of victory. Mount Kunlun had obtained a complete victory in this battle. They slaughtered dozens of miles and killed Ho Lai, one of the most powerful people of the blood refining hall. The remaining members of the blood refining hall fled in all directions like monkeys on a fallen tree. At a glance, there were corpses everywhere. The cruelty of the battle between sects was displayed here. "It's finally over. We won. Now I can finally relax," Yizichin said. The disciples of Mount Kunlun looked at each other and revealed a sincere and relaxed smile. Everyone wiped the bloodstains off their faces and bodies, supported their injured companions, and took care of the corpses of their fellow disciples. "Senior Brother Chu-Hen, how are you feeling? Do you want me to check your injuries?" A medical disciple walked over and asked. Chu-Hen shook his head, indicating that he was fine. "I'm fine. You can treat Senior Sister Lingyan." In order to help Chu-Hen, Lung Lingyan's previous injuries were affected again. As a result, her face was extremely pale. Was it the hidden force of the heart-destroying palm? At this moment, a dignified and heavy voice came into their ears. Chu-Hen and Lung Lingyan were stunned and called out at the same time. "Palace Master," when Liang waved his hand and looked at Chu-Hen with a complicated gaze. After a short moment of silence, he said in a sincere and heartfelt tone, "This time, you saved all of us, including me." As soon as he said that, everyone in the surroundings looked at him with deep gratitude. Indeed, if Chu-Hen hadn't killed Gao Lang, Lu Fu, and Nangong Quan, the corpses of the people of Mount Kunlun would have filled the Fish River. If Chu-Hen hadn't used up Ho Lai's energy, how could Wen Liang have finished the battle? Without a doubt, Chu-Hen was the biggest contributor to this battle. "This is what I should do," Chu-Hen replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Wen Liang heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he took out a black token with a flick of his palm. As they gazed at the command token, the eyelids of everyone present raised while they revealed astounded expressions, and even Lung Lingyan was slightly surprised. Without waiting for Chu-Hen to have any doubts, Wen Liang said with a solemn expression, "This seat, Wen Liang, represents the entire demon-slaying hall to appoint you as the next sect master of Mount Kuan-Lu, Hua." The audience was in an uproar, followed by earth-shattering cheers and applause. The sudden scene caused Chu-Hen to be caught unprepared. When Chu-Hen saw the Black Order token that Wen Liang passed to him, he could not help but smile from the bottom of his heart. He knew that Wen Liang's opinion of him had completely changed. "Thank you, Palace Master." Chu-Hen received the token with both hands, his eyes shining brightly. "Chu-Hen, I was too harsh to you previously. Today I apologize to you. The future of Mount Kunlun is in your hands," Wen Liang said softly. "You're too kind, Palace Master. I don't deserve it." Previously, when they were at Mount Kunlun, Wen Liang had always found it difficult to accept Chu-Hen. Although he had embarrassed Chu-Hen and Chi Hanyu many times, it was undeniable that everything Wen Liang did was for the sake of Mount Kunlun. Based on this alone, Chu-Hen would not hold a grudge against him for the past. "Palace Master, Nangong Ku is still alive." Suddenly, a strange voice caused the atmosphere to become silent. Everyone looked at each other with a strange expression on their faces. However, Chu-Hen said, "Palace Master, I avoided hitting his vital parts with my spear. I think it's better for you to deal with him." Everyone came to a realization. It turned out that Chu-Hen had done it on purpose. He did not take Nangong Ku's life back then. Wen Liang smiled. There was a hint of helplessness and relief in his smile. The helplessness was that Chu Hen was far superior to Nangong Ku not only in terms of cultivation, but also in his wisdom and character. That was because he was the one who taught Nangong Ku, so there was nothing he could do. What was comforting was that the future sect master of Mount Kuan-Lu was so admirable. Phew, Wen Liang exhaled deeply. He closed his eyes and opened them again. Let's give him a quick death. Everyone fell silent. Everyone could feel the complicated feelings in Wen Liang's heart. At the same time, this was the best outcome. In the blink of an eye, several days had passed. In the fish stream, the waterfall was like the Milky Way, flowing for thousands of feet. Early in the morning, at the summit of a mountain range, the surging and mighty power of the stars flowed between heaven and earth, and the entire mountain stream produced bursts of rhythmic fluctuations. Then, with a deafening boom, the earth shook and rocks flew everywhere. A majestic mountain ridge was directly smashed in the middle, and a huge pit opened up in the ground. Such a huge commotion so early in the morning. Are you trying to fill up the entire mountain range? A light voice with a hint of laughter sounded. Lung Lingyan had just flown over when she was stunned by the scene in front of her. A huge circular pit appeared in the ground below. Countless cracks spread out in all directions like a spider's web. Traces of violent destructive aura still lingered in the air, and in the sky ahead, Chu Hen stood proudly under the blue dome of heaven. Streaks of starlight intertwined around his right arm, displaying the power to control heaven and earth. Seeing Lung Lingyan, Chu Hen retracted the aura around his body. He raised his head and smiled. Senior Sister Lingyan, are your injuries better? I'm almost done. Lung Lingyan nodded and said, What martial technique are you cultivating? It's so powerful. A martial technique that I obtained in the 100 Kingdoms continent. Oh? There's actually such a powerful martial technique manual in such a small place? Chu Hen smiled. That's right, and I haven't even reached the highest level yet. Lung Lingyan was even more surprised. Looks like there's an unknown secret behind that martial technique manual. Unknown secret? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes slightly narrowed, and a ray of light couldn't help but flash across his heart. Behind the Big Dipper Heavenly Star technique was the Seven Souls Kingdom, and after the Seven Souls Kingdom perished, it became the current Seven Souls Palace. Back then, the Dubhe Star Spirit Envoy asked him to pass a mysterious box to a descendant of the Seven Souls Kingdom's royal family. Mysterious box. 6 years. And the powerful Big Dipper Heavenly Star technique. These clues did not seem to be related, but if they were linked to the ancient Desolation Heaven domain, it would immediately raise suspicions. Could it be that the Big Dipper Heavenly Star technique came from the ancient Desolation Heaven domain? The people from the Seven Souls Kingdom had come here the last time the ancient Desolation Heaven domain opened. It was highly possible. However, Chu Hen did not dwell on this for too long. As long as the Seven Souls Palace was mentioned, Chu Hen would still feel a little unhappy. Senior Brother Chu Hen, Senior Sister Lingyan. The Hall Master is looking for you. A young man flew over in a flash. Got it, Chu Hen replied. Soon after, he and Lung Lingyan rushed towards the direction of the fish stream. In the fish stream, the disciples of Mount Kuan-Lu were all ready to go. Over the past few days, Wen Liang had ordered everyone to take a break after the battle. At the same time, they were waiting for news from Qi Hanyu. In the blink of an eye, so many days had passed, but Qi Hanyu still had not returned. Shan Zhen, Qin Qi, Shu Hua, and Mu Feng had not sent back any news either. This made them feel a little restless. It seemed like Wen Liang was preparing to leave this place. Hall Master. Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan landed in front of Wen Liang one after another. Wen Liang nodded slightly and said, You should know the reason why I called you here. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. All right, both of you will lead 20 people to the southwest to search for the whereabouts of the Hall Master of the Flying Celestial Palace. As for the rest, follow me to the north to search. We'll meet up at the River Sky City. River Sky City? Chu Hen muttered softly. The River Sky City is a big city in the ancient desolate heaven territory that is connected to the main road. Many sects and forces will gather there to exchange information. Lung Lingyan explained softly. As one of the top forces in the Eastern Victory State, Mount Kuan-Lu had already obtained a lot of information and maps about the ancient desolate heaven territory before they came to the ancient desolate heaven territory. Therefore, everyone knew about the existence of the River Sky City. Both of you must be careful. Liao Qi from the Blood Refining Sect has disappeared with the Hall Master of the Flying Celestial Palace. If you encounter him, remember not to act rashly. Also, when Liang paused before he said to Lung Lingyan and the others, if you're in danger, your first task is to protect the safety of the next sect leader. Understood? Lung Lingyan said firmly. Today, even when Liang supported Chu Hen, if there were no accidents, Chu Hen becoming the sect master of Mount Kuan-Lu was a matter that was nailed to an iron plate. Therefore, Chu Hen's safety was the top priority. Naturally, when Liang could bring Chu Hen with him. However, if he did that, he would be wasting the opportunity to train in the ancient desolate heaven territory. When Liang believed in Chu Hen's ability. However, Chu Hen still had a long way to go. Therefore, it was best for them to split into two teams. When Liang then picked 20 elite disciples with extraordinary strength and formed a new team with Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan. Su Lang and Ling Tao were naturally among them. Apart from that, they also needed disciples who were good at tracking and sensing. After a series of instructions, Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan left Fish Water Stream with their team. Chapter 790. After the battle at Fish Water Stream, a team led by Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan began searching for the whereabouts of Qi Hanyu, the sect leader of the Flying Celestial Palace. The search area continued to expand, but they still could not sense the aura of Qi Hanyu and the others. Along the way, they were more or less anxious. After all, there were many things that could not be predicted in the ancient desolate heaven territory. After losing contact with them for such a long time, it was difficult to determine what had happened. Swoosh! As a lithe figure flashed down, more than a dozen figures standing on a mountain peak cast inquiring gazes over. How is it? Did you find anything? Su Lang asked as he walked up. The man lifted his eyelids slightly, nodded at Su Lang, and then looked back at the young man and woman behind him. Senior brother Chu Hen, senior sister Lingyan. I found this ahead. As he spoke, he took out a piece of bark the size of a palm. The bark looked like it had just been shaved off, and on the bark, a small eagle pattern was engraved. It faintly emitted some weak fluctuations of spiritual energy. Su Lang's eyes lit up as he exclaimed, "This is the signal left behind by senior brother Shan Zhen." Su Lang was Ling Tao's partner, and he had worked with Dan Zhen many times in the past. He was very familiar with the signal mark Dan Zhen released, and he could identify it with just one glance. Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan looked at each other. Both of them were pleasantly surprised. After so many days, they finally had a clue. Lung Lingyan's red lips parted as she asked, "Where did you find this?" Reporting to senior sister Lingyan, 25 miles ahead. What's so special about that place? There's nothing special about the place senior brother Shan Zhen left the mark. However, there's a strange blood forest about 10 miles ahead. Blood forest? Everyone was slightly stunned and revealed bewildered expressions. What's a blood forest? Chu Hen asked in a deep voice. It's a dense and lush forest. However, all the trees in the forest are strangely red. I didn't dare to enter rashly, so I came back to report it. Chu Hen nodded slightly. A hint of solemnity could be seen in his eyes. A blood-red forest. Just from the man's description, it gave off the feeling that it was a place of great danger. In addition, Dan Jun and the others had left for so long and had yet to return. Clearly, there was something fishy about that place. After a brief discussion, everyone headed in that direction without any hesitation. After a short while, a vast, magnificent, and extremely bizarre scene appeared before Chu Hen, Lung Lingyan, and the others. The endless blood-colored forest was like a vast ocean. The towering trees looked extremely strange. There were many forks on the branches, and each tree looked like a monster baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Once someone stepped into it, it seemed as if they would not hesitate to open their bloody mouths hidden under the branches. These strange red trees were of different sizes. The smaller ones were dozens of meters tall, while the larger ones extended hundreds of meters. From afar, this place looked like a gigantic blood branch cage. There doesn't seem to be anything special about it. A disciple of Mount Kunliu casually said. Don't be careless. Ling Tao frowned slightly and warned, this forest is lifeless. I can't even sense the aura of a living creature. This is definitely not a good place. Chu Hen turned slightly and said to a delicate and pretty young girl behind him, Junior Sister Xiao, try to sense if there's any aura of Dan Jun and the others. Yes, Senior Brother Chu Hen. The young girl nodded seriously. Then, she clasped her hands together and formed a seal. An invisible force flowed out of her body rhythmically. After a while, she slowly opened her eyes with an apologetic and remorseful look on her face. I'm sorry, Senior Brother Chu Hen. I can't sense their aura, Chu Hen smiled. It's all right. It's not your fault. The others were slightly disappointed. In Mount Kunliu, Li Xiu's perception was second only to Nongqi. If even she could not find them, things would not be so simple. What did you discover? Lung Lingyan looked at Chu Hen in surprise. The other party's angular profile gave him a calm temperament. Chu Hen did not reply immediately. After a moment of silence, he said, Let's enter from below. As he said this, a faint purple light flashed in the depths of Chu Hen's eyes. And Chu Hen could see very clearly that the area above the blood-colored forest in front of them was filled with an extremely dense baleful aura. The seemingly wide and unobstructed area above was actually filled with hidden dangers. Immediately, with Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan leading the way, everyone entered the blood forest with their hearts filled with caution. The quiet forest was especially deathly still. The more one was in such an environment, the more one would be on guard. Trees that looked like ghosts stood in the surroundings. The group could not help but have the illusion that they had barged into a den of demons. And the deeper they went, the denser the trees became. The lush branches and leaves blocked the sky, and the light became increasingly dim. Oppression gradually enveloped everyone's hearts. After almost an hour, even Lung Lingyan frowned. The others were even paler, sweating profusely and panting weakly. What's going on? I'm getting more and more tired. Su Lang finally could not help but speak. The others hurriedly chimed in. That's right. We're clearly not doing anything, but our stamina is being depleted so quickly. This is too strange. Senior Brother Chu Hen, how are you feeling? Everyone looked at Chu Hen. However, what was surprising was that Chu Hen was completely fine. He was calm and composed, and the rhythm of his breathing did not change at all. What's wrong with all of you? Why do you look so pale? The one who spoke was the perception-type young female disciple just now, Li Xiu. What's going on? Junior Sister Xiu, are you all right too? Ling Tao asked with wide eyes. I'm fine. Li Xiu also looked confused, but she appeared very relaxed. This time, everyone was a little confused. There were so many people, but why were Chu Hen and Li Xiu the only two people who were fine? The others were getting more and more tired. Hiss! Suddenly, at this moment, a series of rustling sounds rang in everyone's ears. What followed closely was a thick aura of danger. Everyone was greatly alarmed. Before they could react, they saw strong vines suddenly spread over, entangling the people from Mount Kunliu like venomous snakes. Be on guard! Chu Hen shouted, then waved his hand. A swift and fierce black sword energy slashed down, directly cutting the few vines that were charging at the front. The others also took this opportunity to take out their weapons and fight back. What the hell? Su Lang raised his sword and slashed at a vine that was as thick as a wrist. With a crisp ding, sparks flew in the air, and a sword mark that was only half an inch deep appeared on the vine. It can't be? Su Lang was instantly shocked. The current him was already an expert of the earth-profound realm, but with his strength, he could not even cut a single vine. However, it was not only Su Lang. Other than Chu Hen and Lung Lingyan, the others found it difficult to destroy the vines in one blow. These vines were as strong as steel ropes, and their tenacity was comparable to divine weapons. Even the sacred weapons in everyone's hands seemed to be struggling to cut them. Cold light flashed, and the shadows of swords intersected. The number of vines kept increasing, and they enveloped everyone from all directions with the momentum of a cage. What was even more shocking was that the blood-red towering trees shook their strong and lush branches and swept towards the crowd. The densely packed branches intersected on their own, like a bird's nest, trapping everyone inside. This won't do. If this goes on, the area we can move will become smaller and smaller. We must rush out quickly, Lung Lingyan frowned. Then, she stretched out her jade-like palm, and a spiral-shaped white air wave spun rapidly in the center of her palm. The powerful and terrifying palm force directly blasted towards a giant tree that was more than 100 meters tall. Bang! The peerlessly powerful palm force poured down, and the giant tree shook violently. Countless cracks spread rapidly on the trunk, and it immediately lost its vitality. Good! Everyone's eyes lit up. However, before they could say the word good, the middle of the giant tree collapsed, and vines that looked like venomous pythons shot out and attacked Lung Lingyan at an extremely fast speed. Lung Lingyan's pretty face changed slightly, and she hurriedly retreated. The vines pursued her relentlessly like spirit snakes and WRMS. They soared up and down and followed Lung Lingyan to various places. In the blink of an eye, a bird's nest cage was formed, single sword flying immortal technique. Whoosh! 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 A powerful sword aura gushed out from Chu Hen's body. In the face of such a situation, Chu Hen immediately summoned the blue sky sword. The blue sky sword that was like a green ray of light transformed into countless sword shadows that flew back and forth wantonly, slashing the vines one after another. The sword aura was like the rain, and the speed was like the wind. Chu Hen's domineering attitude slightly relieved everyone. Even so, the situation was not optimistic. If Chu Hen continued to use the single sword flying immortal technique, his body's quintessential essence would be depleted endlessly. When his quintessential essence was finally depleted, the outcome would be obvious. Let's retreat first. Lung Lingyan said to Chu Hen with a little worry. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and he fell into deep thought. They were already deep in, and they might be able to pass through this forest if they persevered a little longer. If they left now, all their previous efforts would be wasted. Similarly, if the road ahead of them was still too far to reach, then everyone might very well be buried here. At that moment, Chu Hen suddenly caught a glimpse of Li Xiu from the corner of his eye. Although Li Xiu was a little flustered, every strike of her sword could easily sever those sturdy vines. What was this? Li Xiu's cultivation level was not the strongest among them. Instead, she was considered the weakest among the 20 people who came this time. Yet, her performance along the way was so surprising. Could it be? Chu Hen shouted. Junior Sister Xiu, are you a pattern artist? This sudden question startled everyone, including Li Xiu. She nodded, and a powerful Reiki energy spread out from her Naiwen palace without any concealment. So that was it. I understand now. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows. This was what he and Li Xiu had in common. Just as he finished speaking, a powerful Reiki energy spread out, and various dazzling runes lingered around Chu Hen and danced around him. Whoosh! A loud and clear sword chime sounded like an eagle's cry. Gorgeous runes gathered on the blue sky sword, forming a strange and exquisite pattern. Swoosh, the next moment, the blue sky sword, which was surrounded by the power of runes, burst out and pierced straight ahead. Boom! The invisible and majestic sword aura was like divine help under the enhancement of the Reiki energy. Towering trees were cut in half, and vines were directly crushed into pieces. Branches and leaves flew everywhere, and dust flew everywhere. In an instant, a dark and deep passage appeared in everyone's vision. "Follow me," Chu Hen's figure moved, and he directly rushed out.